Welcome to the 7th session of our Three Brothers D&D 5th edition campaign. Last session saw two of our brave heroes, Watum and Avastar, rescuing a fleeing halfling youth from the terrible jaws of a trio of ferocious wargs. Whilst this was taking place, they were met by an ebony-skinned elf who introduced himself as Zan, and the three of them travelled to a small village which was being menaced by ogres. Being the heroes that they are, they helped the village overcome these ogres, the villagers living in fear of being snatched by these monsters and unable to leave the village since these ferocious wargs, the pets of the ogres, were set upon them. However, with that now dealt with, they have all turned their eyes back towards Battlebridge. So what I'm going to do, as is my wont, I'm going to ask the players to introduce themselves and say a little bit about their characters. So he's been absent for some time, but now the man with the scales is back. Drax, if you can please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Matthew, aka Rhaegar the Dragonborn on YouTube. I am playing Drax, the Tempest Cleric in this campaign. Drax, as always, on the lookout for his family and kin scattered across the world. So far, not so much luck in that. However, in the last session that he was present, he was attacked by some kind of suspicious-looking creature in his room, and he gave chase out the window and was seemingly poisoned. And that was the last we've seen of Noble Drax.
Okay, thank you very much. And next we move on to Watum.
Okay, I'm playing Watum. He's about a little over 6 feet tall, bald. He's walking down the road heading towards Battlebridge, probably a little weary from the last few days' events. We went from a party to a companion going crazy, and then ran into a troubled little village that we gave help to, and they seem to be struggling. And now we're finally getting back home. It hasn't been all that pleasant, but it's been somewhat enlightening to Drax, who has a narrow world view and is trying to expand it.
Okay, thank you very much. Next we will go on to the newcomer to the party, which is Zan.
Man's over 6 feet tall. He has wispy white hair and extremely black skin, and he's walking. He's a little bit behind these two strangers he just met, and he's still trying to get over something that they did a few nights ago that still kind of disturbs him, and a bit disillusioned, but he's trying to get through it because it's too early to feel like that, really. And he's walking towards Battlebridge, and he really can't wait to see what it is.
Okay, thank you very much. And last but by no means least, we have Avastar of the Noble House of Tholage.
Precisely what he just said. So I am playing Avastar, the noble half-elf from House Tholage, although he is a bit of an oddball to the rest of his family, and because of this he decided to head to the region of the Three Brothers Vale, learn about the place, prove himself to his family by becoming a powerful sorcerer. So he'll be walking with Watum, trying to sort of keep in his comfort zone. He's kind of feeling unsure of himself after the events that happened previous, and at this point he's walking quite briskly, just hoping to get to Battlebridge as soon as possible, get back together with Drax, and hope that he can be a bit more level-headed about things.
Okay, thank you very much. So, before we go to Watum, Zan, and Avastar, we're going to, as though we're flicking back through the pages of the book, we're going to jump back in time approximately 6 days to where Drax has just said goodbye to his friends who are heading off to head to Ordious, Watum, and Avastar, who are heading off to a masquerade ball at the Houseless Scoris Estates. Promises to be an entertaining affair, but I'm sure nothing bad will happen whatsoever. And they've just merrily left and gone on their way. Drax, obviously disturbed by the incident in his hotel room where a masked person with a dagger was lurking behind his door and then attempted to flee out of a window, has stayed behind to investigate that, wanting to clear it up so it wasn't dwelling on his mind and so any evidence wasn't washed away by the time they got back. So, Drax, you've been sort of searching around the area. The last thing we did with your character is you basically passed out as you'd hit the cobbles. You woke up with the rest of your companions, Ordious, Avastar, Watum, etc., around you. You had a shallow cut, as though with a knife across your forehead, but otherwise, and a bit of damage from the fall, you were uninjured. Your friends have then said they're going off to this ball, and they've all disappeared off out of Battlebridge, leaving you behind to investigate the matter of this person. So where would you have started in your investigations, Drax?
Drax will remember to mute himself. Drax will... He would have started asking the innkeeper, actually, probably whoever's on duty, if they've seen this person he describes coming in or out, or maybe is there a familiar description, or someone you could ask, maybe at the tavern as well.
Okay, yeah, no problem. You ask around at the tavern. It takes like a couple of hours because you're moving around different people. A lot of people don't seem to have heard much. It's quite noisy in the tavern. No one remembers seeing an ominously cloaked figure with a dagger, surprisingly enough, sort of stalking their way through the main bar. However, a couple of people who said they were sat nearer to the window do remember hearing a scrabbling outside. But given that the Common Sword is a sort of fairly old and wooden building, they just assumed it was rats or maybe birds, and they paid no further mind and carried on with their drinking.
Failing that, in the intervening time, I'll check the room, see if anything is actually missing. Maybe something additional has been placed there, maybe some kind of curse or message was left for me, maybe I interrupted someone.
Okay, not a problem. You go back into the room. Can you please make me an investigation roll?
I absolutely can. Investigation is not one of my best skills, but we'll give it a shot. Boom. Let's do it. Can you see that, John? I got 11.
Yes, I can. 11.
I don't get any bonus, so it's just pure roll. D20.
Okay, not a problem. As you're searching your room, at first you don't really see anything untoward. You obviously check the drawers and the dresser, etc. Nothing appears to have been stolen. If you'd left any money in your room or any personal possessions, they're untouched. Although looking at it, you can see it looks as though someone's opened the drawers and looked in them, but they don't appear to have actually taken anything. Leastway, nothing you notice has gone missing. However, as you sort of gradually work your way over towards the window in your room, where the window's sort of still open, you catch sight of what appears to be a small white object that appears to be caught sort of in the joint of the window as it's been opened. It appears to be fluttering gently in the cold free trade breeze.
I shall place my scaly hands upon it, John, and look at it closer.
Okay, not a problem. It appears to be the corner of a piece of parchment, as though like a larger parchment had got trapped in the window, and when someone pulled it away, the corner of it's torn off and is still trapped in the window. As you sort of look at it, you can see that very crudely sort of drawn on it, perhaps in charcoal or some sort of pastel, there's a very crude sketch drawn on it, and it appears to be the end of some sort of wand or staff. If you've seen Watum's wand, it looks very familiar to you.
I mean, it's up to Watum in this regard, but I assume he would have showed it to the entirety of the group at some point. I noticed it at temporal.
It's not a very subtle one. Yeah, I've used it all the time. It's very
Plus, as well, you were
at the
Church of Abraham. You were
Okay.
the Church of Abraham when obviously the wand was produced and tested. You know that it's a wand with like a demon head carved at each end. And this is basically, it looks like it's a sketch. You can only see like a bit of it because it's only the corner of the parchment. But it's definitely the same sort of like demonic face that's been carved onto.
Can I tell if it is Watum's wand exactly, or if it is a wand I've never seen before? I've seen two, haven't I?
It looks very. It's definitely not the sort of angelically carved wand that you saw at the Church of Abraham. It definitely looks very much like Watum's wand. However, it's not exact, obviously, because it's like a crude, quick sketch that someone's done. But you're 99% sure that this is a sketch of Watum's wand.
So Drax muses to himself. Some ne'er-do-well breaks into my room. Looks to lay a trap for me, but perhaps I was not the intended target.
Do you like take the parchment out, or are you sort of like looking at it and leaving it in the window joint?
No, I take it out.
Okay, no problem. As you take it out, a couple of sort of fairly small, sort of round objects, very thin, fall off the parchment and flutter to the ground.
Okay. I'm gonna have a look at them if I can. Are they?
Okay. Sorry,
Do they appear to be actual rings, like a jewelry? Can I tell that from the?
It's difficult to tell at first. You've literally just seen the light glinting off them, but as you peer closer, you can actually see they appear to be like a couple of very thin, semi-translucent scales, about yay big, a light green in coloration.
Okay. Drax will actually like take one of them in his massive hand and sort of peer right at it. Getting excited for a second. That looks draconic in nature, but possibly too small to be of an actual dragon.
It's definitely too small to be of an actual dragon, unless it was like a ridiculously young one. And the scale does appear very thin and soft. It's not sort of like the hard sort of protective scales that you yourself have. It's very flexible and thin. It's almost like the sort of thinness and consistency of confetti. You can bend it and flex it. That's how thin it is.
Can I make a guess at a creature that would have this sort of scaling? Possibly the identity of the thing that was in this room, maybe.
I would say if you want to make me a nature roll, perhaps. To see
I
if you
absolutely
know
would love to do that, John. Yeah. Nature. Again, not my strongest point, so it's just a straight roll, John.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have no idea.
It could be from a snake, it could be from a lizard. There's any number of different animals. Given that you've only got like a couple of these scales, it's difficult to tell. You'd probably have more luck if you had like a larger sampling of.
This only adds to my questions. Shame that Watum is not here to ask him. Now, I'm a man of the church, right, John? So, is there any chance that Drax, in his teachings, would know of any religion or significance that would be chasing after these sort of things, like an organization that would hunt artifacts in this nature, or
Okay, make me a religion roll.
see if there's any connection there. Religion is something I can do, right? That's a total of 6, John.
Okay, no problem. There are numerous religious cults that envision their deities as a snake. There are rumored to be also reptilian creatures. There are rumored to be some sort of religions in like the Southlands who worship serpents. There's supposedly giant tribes up in the north in like Frostholm and such like who worship great sort of world-devouring serpents. There's almost too many of them for you to actually sort of narrow it down.
No,
there's numerous like minor cults of like swamp dwellers and stuff like that that worship natural animals and sort of more animistic entities. Like I said, there's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. So, after this, Drax will kind of frustrated. Just the time that he needs his companions, they're not there to answer his incessant questions. So he'll stow his weapons. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
His next port of call would be to go out and question any local houses nearby and see if they saw anything. and look for any like maybe bloodstains outside his window or anything that would lead him to get a clue who this person was and why they were interested in.
Okay, not a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move forward montage style as you spend your time trying to pursue this matter. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to make an investigation roll if you're just trying to investigate. If you're more just trying to question people, you could perhaps justify a persuasion roll if you prefer that, depending on how you're approaching your investigation. And then I'll sort of give you an overall result based on that roll.
I'd probably just go with investigation in that case.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Just straight 6, John.
Okay, you don't really find anyone who claims to have like seen a robed figure running away from the common sword or any such like during the evening. However, after sort of asking around, you're moving around the city asking, obviously, you're not sort of just asking in one place. This is like an aggregate result from you asking a lot of people. Probably taking you like a couple of days of questioning people, etc. And as you're doing that, you do hear a strange story. It's a market trader called Rune who tells you the story. He says that apparently a man was found lying in the street. He was pale. He didn't seem to know where he was. He was sweating all over. His heartbeat was erratic. He was rushed off to a local temple to see if they could get any help for him. Apparently he's still there in the temple of Abraham, although he's not actually recovered any since. He's basically still in a very sort of critical state. No one really knows what's wrong with him. He was just sort of found lying in the street, sort of shuddering, almost as though he'd had some sort of seizure or some sort of episode. And he seems quite, from what this guy Rune tells you, he seemed quite incomprehending of where he was or who he was. He was just raving and gibbering.
Well, that is a dire tale to hear indeed. At some point, Drax would like to go visit this man and see if he can help him, if possible. Since his investigations aren't going too well, at least he could do is try and offer this man some aid.
Okay, not a problem. Again, and I apologise for the fact I'm skipping through this briskly. It's just to try and get the others into it as quickly as possible. When you go to the Temple of Abraham, they obviously recognise you. After a bit of sort of banter, you're allowed to see this guy, and you see he's quite like he looks like he's quite a sort of strong, well-built, sort of like muscular man. However, his skin is all pallid and waxy with that sort of horrible yellowy pale consistency to it. He's sweating profusely from where he's lying on an improvised cot. You can see his mouth hanging open. There's a bit of the track of drool running down one side of his face. His eyes again have got this unhealthy yellow look to him, and they're staring straight ahead of him. And occasionally he mumbles like a random word, but it's nothing that makes any sense. There's a couple of priests tending to him, but they don't seem to be able to do much aside from like occasionally change the cold compress that's on his forehead, try and keep him fed and watered as best they can, change his bed linen, etc.
The poor fellow. I do hope that he wasn't the consequences of my escape from this creature. I'll offer what aid I can.
Okay, not a problem. Can you make me a medicine roll?
I can. Medicine. I actually know something about medicine. That's awesome. Alright. Oh, that's a 22, John. Is he dead?
Okay. Splendido. No. You're pretty sure that this man has been poisoned by something. And in fact, as you're sort of looking around on his body, you find like 2 puncture marks on the underside of his arm, although you can't find any trace of like any residue on it. And without knowing exactly what type of poison it is, it's very difficult to provide the appropriate remedy. But he's definitely been poisoned by something, in your opinion.
Could I use
accurate examining? Sorry, go ahead.
Could I use? Is it possible? So I don't want to take forever. If people this, it's possible to use my ritual spells to try and draw this poison out.
Which spell are you using?
I believe I have something like that. Maybe. Just looking. Which one I'm looking for? Oh,
Then cross my palm my spell name.
Detect poison and disease. That's what I was looking at. Would a Q wounds count in this case? I don't know if.
Let me just check, and I will tell you.
No. Lesser restoration works for poisons and diseases.
Right. Okay.
No, cure wounds just regains them hit points. It doesn't remove any poisons or diseases.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could effectively cure wounds to like keep him going a bit longer, but he'd still be very sick and he'd still be suffering from the effects of the poison. Because obviously he's getting steadily weaker. His body's slowly succumbing to whatever venom or horribleness it is running through his veins. And you think that's probably what the priests here have been doing. They've just been sort of trying to bolster him up in the hope that somehow his own immune system will be able to deal with it.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's not looking good, to be honest, from your sort of medical opinion.
Absolutely. One should always look after his crew, even if this man perhaps is not of my close crew.
Okay, now, are you going to cast a spell on him to try and like sort of restore some hit points to him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not going to bother about the exact amount of hit points because you'll have time to rest, etc. So I'm just going to make a note that you've cast that. Okay. As you're laying your hands on this man to try and heal him and bolster him up so he can last a bit longer, in his sort of spasmodic occasional thrashing, his hand reaches out and he, almost like without really being conscious of you being there, sort of tangles in your cloak and pulls you closer to him. And in a sort of mad, raving voice, he looks at you and he's like, "The yellow eyes! The yellow eyes!" And then he falls backwards, sort of like almost foaming at the mouth. And a couple of the priests have to run in and sort of like hold him down to the bed as his body's like thrashing about.
Otherwise. Now, when I saw this thing that attacked me, John, did I get a look at its face?
You didn't know it was wearing a sort of one of those long hoods sort of pulled down over its face. You could basically just see like the chin, which looked human as far as you could see, but then obviously it turned around and pelted off, so you didn't really get a chance. I will, however, say, can you make me a perception roll?
Yes, I can do that. Okay. So perception, that's a 19, John.
Okay, no problem. Now you think about it, though, you do remember you didn't see this person, as I've said. You just sort of saw their normal human chin, as it were. But as you were sort of got a bit closer, the last thing you remember before blacking out as you hit the cobbles was there was a sort of faint, sort of dry, like musty smell about the person. You know, almost like like if you leave clothes in the wash for too long, you take them out, they're a bit damp. They've got that sort of weird sort of smell to them. It was a bit like that. You didn't really think about it at the time. You just assumed it was something in your room, and you were obviously too busy running after this fool to like worry about what they smelled like. But now you think about it, it was definitely a certain sort of manky aroma coming off them.
And is this the smell I can get right now?
You're not smelling it right now, but it's just struck you because obviously you've been sort of thinking and mulling it over. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to speed forward again.
Okay.
Days roll past, and obviously your investigation has taken a series of days. I'm just giving you the sort of end result. So when we get near to the end of this 6-day period, there's quite a lot of commotion in the town of Battlebridge.
Whatever could be going on?
When you ask around, you ask a few people what it is, you hear that apparently a coachman from the Lascaris family estate has just made it back to the town of Battlebridge, and he's told this fantastic tale of marauding orcs massacring all of the household staff and the vast majority of the coachmen at the Lascaris ball, and setting fire to the building and causing severe property damage.
Surely that must be some overblown rumour. Last I heard, the orcs were relatively quiet in this region. We haven't had any sightings in months.
And you may well indeed think that, but this person swears that their story is true. And over the next sort of day, you do hear that Garth Bothran, the ruler of Battlebridge, who was apparently at the ball, has returned. And you notice over the course of that day that several posters, well, parchments hand-drawn, obviously, are tacked up on the walls of various buildings in Battlebridge. And if you can see that, that is what the posters look like.
What? Drax will sort of run a hand across one of these posters and be like, "That can't be."
You run your hand across the poster. It looks as though it's been fairly sort of hastily knocked up, but it does indeed bear the name of your previous comrade, saying that he is wanted for the brutal murder of Samantha Lascaris and for inciting riot and rebellion. He is to be considered armed and dangerous.
But he was such a helpful half-orc. Kind of unlike his race. He wouldn't stoop to murder, surely not.
Okay, and as we're getting near to the end of this 6-day period, you start hearing people saying that apparently the word has come down from Garth Bothran that if this orc is encountered in the city and is apprehended, he's to be given a fair trial and then hanged as quickly as possible. You also hear rumours that apparently a measure is being pushed through the Battlebridge Council that is going to give the City Guard authority to stop, question and detain those of orcish ancestry to determine whether they are in league with this rebellious element that is apparently responsible for all of the tomfoolery at the Lascaris estate.
We'll give him a completely fair trial and then we will hang him.
Or even if he's found innocent, we'll hang him.
Those
Just
are
be
the
on the safe
rules.
side.
Say one thing, Drax is most eager to see his colleagues again and find out what the hell happened while they were gone.
Okay, so
House murdered?
one last roll for you, Drax. In this period, can you please make me a final persuasion roll?
Persuasion roll, absolutely. That's a 6, John. I get a.
Okay.
I'm not very persuasive.
As we're getting to the end of this sort of 6-day period, and you've retired to the common sword, you also start hearing rumours that apparently this Samantha Lascaris, this woman, whoever was killed, that a lavish funeral was held for her the following day. And you hear some vague rumours, nothing concrete, but you also hear rumours that apparently parties unknown managed to break into the Lascaris estate during the funeral and have absconded with a number of precious and valuable items possessed by the family, whilst most of them were occupied with the funeral.
These brigands have absolutely no sense of decency anymore.
So next morning we find you sat in the common sword. You've seen Breas Conmac, the elf who owns the common sword, has left early with his son Finnan. That they're going about some business, buying provisions, beer, etc. for the bar, and they've headed out. This has left Njorg, the orc barman, the gruff orc, covering the bar work. Normally he only works nights, but like I say, he's covering for Finnan at the moment. As you're sort of sat there pondering all this information you've heard, the door opens and an elf wearing sort of immaculately tailored armour and with sort of tanned bronzed skin walks into the room. He looks about for a few moments as though he's looking for someone, then he walks over to the bar, heads over to Njorg, and he's like, "Excuse me, is the owner of this establishment here?" At which point Njorg says, "No, I'm afraid he's gone out for to get some provisions, get like the beers and the food in. But well, if you want to sit down, you can do that. That's fine. At which point the elf says, "Thank you, I shall do." He stops. He turns around to walk away from the bar to sit down. Then pauses, turns back to the bar, and says, "Excuse me, barman. Do you mind if I ask you? Do you have an Avastar foliage staying here? I've been asking about, and I have heard that my kinsman is resting here." At which point the orc shrugs and says, "Well, I might do. I don't keep track of the names, to be honest. Yeah, we have got we have got an elf staying here. Don't know if it's who you want though. I try not to fraternise with the customers too much. To be honest, you all look the same to me." At which point the elf sort of raises an eyebrow and says, with a slightly strained voice, says, "Well, thank you anyway. I shall wait." And he sits down on a small table on his own and just sort of sits there. You can see he's wearing a sword on his belt. It's a sort of long, rapier-like blade. And he sits down. You see one of his hands is resting on the pommel of it, so it's not drawn, but it's quite obvious from the way he carries himself. You've seen a fair few warriors in your time, Drax, that he's basically ready for if shit goes down.
And he appears to be aware.
He's sat there and he's looking around, like I say, one hand resting on the pommel of his sword.
Is Drax aware of where his fellow adventurers are currently?
Well, as the last you heard of them, they'd gone to this Oscaris family ball, and you've not seen them since. Obviously, at least one of them's wanted for murder.
Yeah. Drax will go outside then, and he is going to wait a little while to see if his colleagues turn up. To give him fair warning.
And for ease to speed things along, I am going to jump to this point, being you guys entering Battlebridge and presumably making your way to the common sword, so I can get you guys straight into it without you having to wait any longer. And I do thank you for your patience for waiting. So, as the rest of you guys, Watum, Zan, who obviously Drax and Zan, you won't be familiar with each other, as the three of you are sort of walking down the street towards the common sword, sort of coming from the north, so you're coming down Procession Road, appropriately enough, towards the common sword, you can see a slightly concerned looking Drax, or as far as you're concerned, Zan, some sort of random dragon man, stood outside the tavern, sort of looking up and down the street.
Oh, finally, what a walk. I need to go and refresh myself.
You are extremely glad, Avastar, of Watum's cleaning cantrips as you've been walking back, since otherwise by now you would no doubt be encrusted almost from head to toe in the mud and filth of the Ellen swamplands.
Perish the thought.
Indeed.
So I go up to my room because I presume that it is still within my occupancy.
Okay.
If you try and enter the common sword, Drax will try and stop you. Just for the record.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to walk into the common sword.
Well, Drax will not stop you because he has no idea who you are at this current time.
Well, I will greet you. We must speak inside. We have walked quite a long ways. We are tired.
Hold fast for a moment or two.
Drax, please, I just want to sit down.
We are very tired. We have walked all day.
I understand this,
Tell us inside.
but I'm worried. I've heard stories, fires, murder, and now there
Stories
is...
that cannot wait 30 seconds until we get inside and sit down?
You notice, Drax, that Watum seems uncharacteristically annoyed. It's as though he's like a little bit more ruffled than he normally would be.
Is his hair slightly singed by chance?
I have none.
Yeah.
We have been through a lot in the past week, and I sort of glance over towards Zan if he's still in the vicinity. Just let us sit down, or you can come up to my room if you want.
Hold a moment. Now I consider you friends. We have travelled together. We have fought together. so I feel I should assist you if I can. There is someone in there, Alistair, looking for you. A man of military bearing, of your own kind. He did not seem the friendly type, and I felt, since I know you'd be coming in sooner or later, that you should be warned of him, because he is definitely has some kind of agenda.
Okay, well, what does he look like?
I'll give a brief description. He's copper, I believe. He's copper tanned.
He looks like that.
Yeah. Okay.
He sounds vaguely familiar, but if he's who I think he is, I don't see him as being harmful. He might have come to give me a message.
Yeah. And also, with Tomb, and I hand him the parchment, this, I believe, was dropped by the person who attacked me in my room.
Okay, Watum, Drax hands you a torn piece of parchment that appears to have a sketch of one of the demonic heads that is carved onto your wand.
I feel if you're going to walk into danger, you should at least walk in it with your eyes open, if I can help you.
Well, Zan's doing fine.
I noticed that Ordious is not with you.
No, he's not.
It is a long and sad tale to tell. I thank you for
Yes.
this information, Drax. Please,
If we're going to tell
let
this
us just sit.
I'd like to sit down.
Yes.
Refreshment and rest is but a few steps away.
Okay, while that conversation has been going on, Zan, you've walked into the bar. You can see this bronze-skinned elf sat in the corner. You notice he appears to be regarding you with a cold, sort of measured expression, a slight frown on his face as you stroll into the bar. The bar's pretty empty at the minute since it's early morning. Most people are sort of off at work or about their business. You see this big burly orc sat behind the bar, sort of scratching behind his ear with a chipped fingernail.
I'm going to look to that elf, and I'm going to be walking towards that orc, but I'm going to take a few glances at like other patrons, like probably the other like 2 or 3 that are in the bar, and see if they're doing the same thing as the elf.
There's a couple of people sat around. From their garb, you might guess that they are fishermen or wharf workers, and you do notice that they're sort of muttering amongst each other, and occasionally they just sort of round a little table, they're sort of muttering to each other, and occasionally they do sort of glance over at you with a sort of slightly suspicious look on their face.
So I'm going to approach the orchestra at the bar, so he needs a bartender. Do you have rooms available? Well, waving out.
He goes, yeah.
Just read them.
Yeah, we've got rooms. We've only got the common rooms left, though. I'm afraid everything else is booked up. You have to doss down with the other people.
That'll be fine for about a day. Or a few. How much do I owe you?
He says, well, I'll be honest with you, I don't really sort out the money for the rooms myself. You'll have to wait till my boss gets back, but I'm sure he can sort it out with you when he gets back. In the meantime, if you want to like sit down or grab yourself a drink, feel free.
Do you have food?
Yeah, sure. Well, we've not really laid on the main meals because the boss and his son are out buying like provision store. But I think we've got some bread and cheese. I can rustle you some of that up.
That should do. How much do I owe you?
He says, well, it's a bit on the stale side, the bread, to be honest, and the cheese ain't the best. Tell you what, let's call it a couple of copper pieces. And
I searched through my own purse. I'm thinking copper's the small brownish red one, yes. And I give him 4 of those.
He goes, oh, well, thank you. And he disappears off into the back, rummages around, and sort of comes back out with like a chipped sort of porcelain plate. There's like a small crack running through the front of it, and he holds it out to. There's a lump of sort of hard cheese on it and some ever so slightly stale bread, like a big hunk of crusty bread on it, and he plonks it unceremoniously down on the bar in front of you. And it's about this point when the others start entering the common sword. You can obviously see Zan stood over at the bar with his bread and cheese.
Oh, so he's making himself a home already. Okay.
I'm going to sit down at a table, and a table that can accommodate 4 people for sure. Relax, and then look to order maybe a bottle of something we can share.
Okay, not a problem. You can certainly order a bottle of wine. That's no problem whatsoever. And that's sent over to you. You sit down, you all sit around the table. As this is going on, Avastar, you notice this bronze-skinned elf stands up from the small table wherever he's sitting, and he starts walking over towards you. And you do indeed recognise Jacob Lustria, who is a minor member of your own house. As he walks over to you, he extends his hands, taking his other hand away from the pommel of his sword, and he says, "My cousin, it's good to see you."
So I would have sort of instinctively propped my feet up on the table in a very sort of relaxed manner, but as soon as I see him, I kind of sit up. I don't stand up, but I shake his hand and go, "Oh, yes, Jacob, isn't it? What on earth are you doing here?"
Well, I had hoped to have a meeting with you at the Lascaris event. Unfortunately, by the time I'd spotted you across the main hall, the chaos that erupted,
Yes.
given the events that occurred, I quite lost sight of you and was able to find you by the time I fought my way free of the crowds. Thinking that you may come here, I travelled to the nearest reasonably sized settlement, and having asked around, found that someone matching your description had been staying here. So I headed here and I waited.
Yes, we've just arrived. We had to walk the whole way. All the carts were burnt. It was truly a horrific night by the time it had finished. It was a shame. I quite enjoyed it to start with.
Indeed, and I wish I had better tidings to bring you, Avastar. However, I've travelled here not as an emissary of my brother Edward, as I normally do. However, I've come to express my own personal concerns about the matter regarding your, and he frowns a little, and says, duel with Nico.
Oh, I'd forgotten all about that. Okay, and what exactly were you going to express your concerns about?
My concern is that although Nico is a thug who lacks common social graces, his challenge was legally made according to the code of our family. I'm sure by now
Yes.
he has no doubt reported it to his superiors that you used magic to effectively escape a legally declared duel, and I fear that the family may attempt to take action against you because of it, or at the very least recall you to demand an explanation.
It wasn't as simple as that. We were all fleeing because the main house had been set on fire, and he was still insistent that we talked about the duel. I kept protesting that it wasn't the right time, and I was happy to do so, but at a later date. He then tried to lay his hands on me. I had no choice, and my friend here got a little overexcited, and he sort of gestures at Watu.
I nodded.
He is also a magic user.
And I would be quite willing to believe you, cousin. However, you may be sure that that will not be the story that Nico tells our elders. And they, having not heard your side of the story, they will only have his to go on. Plus,
Surely
even
there are many witnesses. There were
Yes, but
many
we
there.
don't know who they are.
I'm sure you are correct, and it may stand you in good stead, Avastar, to attempt to acquire some of these witnesses to speak on your behalf. However, I'm also concerned that Nico is well known to have a considerable temper, and he does have the resources of his family, our family, at his disposal, should he decide to escalate this dispute, seeing your refusal to engage in a duel as a personal insult to his honour.
I'm not scared of that hot-headed weasel. I will duel him, but I will duel him in the right environment and with my own weapon.
It may be wise of you to attempt to resolve the matter sooner rather than later, cousin.
Why do you say that?
But the longer Nico has to stir support against you within the family, the more difficult it will be to get your side of the story across. I've seen this before, as unfortunately, as with so many things in this life, it seldom comes down to who is telling the truth. It comes down to who has the most voices and who speaks the loudest. This is why I largely try and stay clear of the politics of our family and engage in military pursuits. Far simpler. It's easier when you know who the enemy are and they don't wear smiles painted on their faces.
You do right, Jacob. Do you know where Nico is now?
Alas, I have no idea. I saw him at the Lascaris function, obviously, but I did not keep track of him after that. Although, knowing Nico, I'm sure he will have headed straight back to our family holdings.
Right. Can I ask, and don't think of me intruding, but apart from the Lascaris ball, is there any other reason why you are here, so far away from home?
I was simply carrying some missives from my cousin to Helena Lascaris. Trade deals, nothing particularly interesting. I fear that the matter will have been put on hold given the unfortunate events of the function, the murder of Samantha Lascaris, and he pauses for a moment and then says, "Did you leave immediately after the ball?"
I suppose it depends what you mean by the end of the ball, but as soon as, well, I suppose what we saw was the masks came off, then Nico recognized me, he slapped me in the face with his glove.
That is the legally recognised way of...
Yes, I know. I don't agree with it. It hurts.
Cousin.
I don't understand it, but anyway, there was someone who appeared to have been poisoned. Then people started panicking. Then a fire broke out, and apparently there was word that the carts were being destroyed outside. Everyone fled. So I suppose that does kind of count as the end of the ball. And we obviously fled. Nico wants to stay in Jewel, however.
Then you were not present for the funeral that took place a day later.
No, but we saw some of what happened with the killing.
I, alas, was obliged to remain there in my diplomatic envoy capacity. The funeral was held. It appears that person or persons unknown were able to break into the estate whilst most people were preoccupied with the funeral, and they have made off with a good deal of House Lascaris' portable wealth.
Oh, goodness. As if they couldn't do anything else bad to the Lascaris house.
Indeed, were I a more cynical man, I might suspect that the killing had been staged precisely to distract the family from the potential robbery. After all, it was not discovered for some hours after the miscreants had made their getaway, since everyone was far too preoccupied with the business of the funeral.
Perhaps. I don't know. And I sort of zone out a bit and I start thinking of Ordious. And you can see me sort of shaking my head ever so slightly.
At this point in time, I'm going to ask Stan, whereabouts are you? Are you still at the bar with your bread and cheese, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. At which point, Jacob leans in to you, Avastar, a little bit closer, lowering his voice into a whisper, and he says, in Elven, "I don't mean to alarm you, cousin, but one of our..." And he uses basically a sort of racial epithet for drow, which effectively translates to demonkin, were it to be rendered into common, is standing at the bar just over there, and he sort of like inclines his head slightly towards the bar. Obviously his voice is like lowered into a whisper, so like he can't be heard across the bar.
Very, very unsubtly I flail my arm a bit and go, oh, him! Yes, I know him. He came back with us.
You hear Avastar's response, Zan.
Yes, I have never seen anyone like that in terms of his, you know. But he proved to be a very good fighter. He saved us from some wargs, so I suppose I am grateful for him for that.
He stares at you with like almost like a look of. Normally he's got a fairly measured sort of facial expression, but like a look of like disbelief and sort of like shock sweeps over his face, and he says, "Cousin, is your reputation amongst our family already not low enough that you seek to sully it further by associating with our dark kin?
Oh,
if they can even be called that."
Well, I don't know why he has skin that color, but what do you mean dark kin? You're making him sound like he's evil.
Indeed. Yes, do you have something against those with dark skin?
He turns towards you and he gives a slightly patronising sigh, and then says, "It is not a matter of their skin colour. As you can see, my own skin colour is dark. However, they bear the sins of their ancestors, great as they are. That is why they were forced from the presence of the rest of our kin many, many years ago."
I don't remember that part of my studies.
Perhaps you should have paid more attention to your studies.
You would find guilt in the sons and daughters of sinners, merely for being so?
There are some taints which run deeper than skin colour. They are in the very blood itself. Such things are not easily cast aside.
And there are some whose vision is not so narrow.
Still, he is a good fighter, and he hasn't changed since you made me aware of the fact that he's supposed to be evil and demonkin, as you say.
He looks at you this time, Avastar, and again he sighs and shakes his head slightly and says, "My cousin, one of the things I've learnt in my many years in this world is that not all evil is obvious. Often evil wears a pleasing or familiar face, that it is not any less evil because of it. It is in recognizing this evil that we truly find out how strong our wills are and how clear our perceptions."
One person's perception of evil is not the same as another's. I'm looking him right in the eyes, try and make my implication obvious.
So I look back at Zan, and then I get a little flashback to what I did in the cave. And then I said, well, you'll be surprised, not all evil presents itself in the same way each time either.
That is very true, cousin. Perhaps there's hope for you yet. Alas, I cannot afford to delay here much longer. I have already spent longer than I intended to here waiting for you. I need to return to the family with my messages and my replies.
Well, I appreciate you staying long enough to let me know of the issues surrounding the duel, but yes, you must be ready to leave.
Of course, much as I know that your standing is not great within our families, I also know that Nico is not a good person. I would not wish to see you brought low by his temper for a momentary lack of judgment.
Well, that's pleasing to know.
Do you have any messages you wish me to take back to the family holdings at Castle Edgemore?
Not really, no. If anything drastic happens, then I will send them a letter myself. But thank you anyway.
Very well then, cousin. One last piece of advice I will give you freely is, if the family do send people to demand for your presence for you to justify your actions at the Lascaris ball, do not attempt to resist them.
I may be a little bit off the wall at times, Jacob, but I'm not that stupid.
He doesn't give a response, but he smiles, turns around, nods to all of you, and then walks out of the door.
I call out something in Elvish, something trivial like, "Oh, make sure your horse doesn't buckle," or something like that.
You hear him chuckle as he walks out of the door.
See, Drax, what did I tell you? He was who I thought he was, and he's not evil at all. Apart from his interesting take on Zan there.
Zan, are you at the table with us right now?
No, I'm at the bar.
All right. So I'm going to gesture for you to come over and join us.
Hesitantly do so.
Yeah, I got 4 glasses. I'm sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear.
Which one of us?
You. I didn't hear what you said.
I hesitantly go join you at the table.
I have not known you long, but I would ask, is it common for you to encounter such prejudging based upon your appearance where you go?
On the surface world, yes.
If it matters to you, I feel no such prejudgment. I will judge you solely on the actions you take.
Me neither. Forgive me, I'm a little more fascinated of your biological makeup, but nothing more than that. I have never seen one of you before. I never even knew that your kind existed. Apparently, my house is a bit resentful of you.
Yes, well, the surface elves are like that. I do not mind.
I don't know if all of them are, but apparently my house is.
No, your house is not unique. It's just a trait of the surface.
Whilst this is going on, what does Drax make of all this that's been occurring while you've been sat there?
Well, Drax kept a little bit of a distance while Alvastar was talking to that elf. He didn't know the man's intentions, and after what he's experienced the last few days, he's a little cautious that there's people creeping around, poisoning people, and someone's been. I was attacked in this very tavern, so a little on edge. After he leaves, I approach, hearing them talk about this guy's colour. Drax does not give a damn about the man's colour or ancestry. He's just another individual to Drax. But he does sit down and ask, "Who is this person? Watu? Avesta? Why have you brought him here?"
He is someone who, well, aided us, and we in turn aided him, I believe.
If he is here, where is Ordious? Has he parted ways with us?
Ordious was a companion of ours before we met you. He presented himself to be one thing, but he turned out to be quite another. He was, in fact, an assassin who murdered an innocent in cold blood before our eyes, surrounded by many guards.
You're telling me this? Those posters are true? I thought it was some kind of sick joke.
Sadly, they are.
Wait, posters? What posters? They've
That's
got
what I say. Things have happened while you've been gone. There's posters about Ordious committing some kind of murder.
It's not some kind of murder. It was a murder, Drax. He slit her throat right in front of us.
If you wish, Drax, you can have snagged one of these posters to show them.
I mean, I didn't think of that, but absolutely would be brilliant if I could do that. Just roll that out. I mean, they did a really good job of getting the kind of orcish chin in there. But
I'm surprised that they found out who he was so quickly. That's quite efficient of them, since last time we saw him, he ran off. He did his deed and then escaped.
And this individual gesturing at Zan, you aided my friends?
I came across them, yes.
Yeah. And you are now travelling with us? You're most welcome to do so. I have no problem with this.
I've been made no such offer.
Oh, okay. Sorry to presume such a thing. Just
You're
see it
welcome
together.
to travel with us if that suits you. Drax, I appreciate this information you have given me regarding this wand, and yet I have been searching for some time, and I feel that Avastar's current situation might be more pressing. This cousin of hers mentioned time as a factor. Tell me, Avastar, how has this affected your social standing among family? I must confess, I do not understand it well.
It's kind of complicated. I have never wanted to follow the conventional route, and because of my magical abilities that I discovered at a fairly young age, my family have loved me, but in a slightly strange, detached way. They thought I was being trivial, perhaps, or going through a phase. But this whole dueling nonsense, by the sounds of it, Nika would go back to the family. He would claim this and that, which didn't really happen at the ball. He would blow things out of proportion, and it would sound like I had simply refused to duel, which is illegal according to the dueling rules. Even I know that. But as you know, that's not exactly what happened. That is not precisely what was said.
What are the repercussions to you should you choose to ignore this?
I'm not quite sure. It could be duel by force, disowning, some kind of punishment, banishment even, I don't know. But it would obviously cause my dignity to wane a little.
Well, I was present there. If I may assist you, I will do so. I will tell them what happened.
I'm sure that would be wonderful, except Nika would simply say that you assisted me. You are a magical user just like me. That is what he seems to be using at the moment for his arguments, according to Jacob.
Then it is upon your other ancestors to discern the truth for themselves. We can only but provide it.
I would quite like to try and find any other witnesses.
There must have been a guest list.
Yes, he challenged me to the duel right in front of everyone, and everything played out from there. Lots of people would have seen it. I would very much like to find a guest list. How about your other wizardly friend? Perhaps he could help.
The astronomer you refer to? Or the church head?
No,
What's
neither.
an astronomer?
I cannot remember his name, Watu, but he worships the same god as you, and we sat with him after the terrors that happened at the ball.
To answer your questions, from what I know, an astronomer is someone who takes information from the stars, although I don't know the exact process for this.
You've
His name
never
is
messaged him,
Anthus.
Drax.
And he indeed tries to interpret what is going on our world from the stars.
Perhaps he could help. He would have at least seen what had happened.
From here, he would have seen it. Was he present at the ball? I did not see him.
Wasn't it a masquerade ball?
You were there.
Just to clarify, guys, you're talking about two different NPCs.
I'm thinking about Anthus.
Watu and Drax are talking about who was the astronomer in Battlebridge. You're referring to Arnemeb, the
that's the one.
The guy who followed you met at the ball, who followed the same Maton way sort of worship that Watu did, albeit in a slightly.
Well, obviously, Drax does not know this individual, so he would have assumed.
Yes. That's what I was saying.
Okay.
If they are both astronomers, perhaps one might know how to find the other.
He never specified when I spoke to him earlier into meeting you. But he did seem affiliated towards that line of thinking.
Forgive me for asking the obvious, for this culture is not my own, but surely the person who hosted the ball would have the guest list.
Not the person who hosted it, but certainly one of their main footmen or clerks would keep an eye on it. I do not wish to ask them directly, if possible, because it is so recent since the death that happened there.
But surely a man of your standing would not ask directly. You would send someone to do it for you, correct?
A man of my standing.
Do you have to believe that you're an important elf in your society?
I'm not that important, Drax. I suppose I could pay for someone to send a message.
How
But
did
it
you
would have
get
to
your
be-
invitation?
That's the point.
Someone obviously must be keeping a tabs on who comes and goes in Battlebridge.
Your name was put on a list as one of the invitees.
I was
Perhaps
invited.
whoever
then
invited you might know where to find such a list.
Who did invite us in the end, John?
You were given your invitation by Talamon, who is the captain of the guard, when you were discussing trying to sort out the graffiti problem.
Yep. Well then, I will see Telemon after a good meal.
And perhaps a bath. I say, looking at my at
Yes.
least worn feet.
Goes without saying. Where's that boy who heats up the bath? I want him to heat it up now. Then I can have a nice hot bath after my meal.
Okay, are you searching for the boy who normally heats the bath up, or how are you trying to locate him?
Well, I kind of look around. If he's not there, I go over to, presume it's the orc on the bar at the minute.
Nyarg, yep.
Yes, hello. I have not seen you for some time, but I'm assuming that my room is all in order.
It's not your room anymore, is it? We've rented it out.
Pardon?
You ain't been here for 6 days, and you haven't paid your bill. We ain't gonna hold your room for you just on the off chance you come back. It's not a tavern's work suite.
I would have been back the same night, however, my method of transport was burnt to the ground by terrorists. We had to walk.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that, but business is business. You didn't turn up, you ain't paid your bills, we've rented the room out. Don't know what you want me to tell you. I'm afraid if you want a room here, we've only got the common rooms left. You'll have to doss down in them with everybody else.
I'm not staying in those rooms. How very indecent to get changed in front of other people. Is there another...
We're not asking you to get intimate with them. For fuck's sake, you're only sleeping in the same room.
Is there any other taverns around here where you seem to want me to take my business?
He says, well, there's a few taverns in Battlebridge.
Okay then. If you are not willing to buy out the room, and I am very much still on coin in terms of that, then I will relocate my wares to another room in another tavern. I will, however, be taking a meal tonight, and I will pay for it.
Go well, I should hope so. That's generally how it works.
Yes, well, normally if you do someone like me a disservice, you get it free of charge, but I am feeling generous.
I'm not entirely sure what disservice I've done you. You fucked off. We rented the room out.
What do you have on your menu tonight?
Says, well, we've got some nice fish on the menu. Lovely, just caught yesterday. Still quite fresh. We've got some bread. We've got some cheese. I think we've got some wild bird, bit of swamp lizard. I can do you. That's right nice, stewed up.
I'll take the wild bird, please. Make sure it is thoroughly plucked.
Well, obviously it's plucked.
Thoroughly. I don't want any feathers in my food.
Oh, all right, lardy-da, calm yourself down. Well, I'll make sure there's no feathers in it. They'd all get burnt off anyway when we've cooked it, so there won't be no feathers. Anyway, yeah, I'll go and start getting that ready.
Good.
And he sort of looks around and he's like, no, I shouldn't really believe in the bar, but all right, I'll go and sort it out. Sorry, I'm the only one here at the minute. The boss and his son have gone out.
Where is that young boy who totters around near the stables? I wish to speak with him.
Oh, the half-wit, he's out in the stables. It's where he kips.
Okay. I will go and find half-wit then. Thank you.
Well, that's suit yourself.
So I'm going to sort of wander out to the stable and just have a little word with him.
Okay, not a problem. You head out to the stables, and after a few moments, you do indeed see the young boy, Simon. He's sort of checking the tacking on various horses and are making sure they're fastened up and they've got hay, etc., and that he's changing their water and stuff like that. He doesn't seem to notice you as you approach. He's sort of like can't really hear you because of the jangling of like horses' tack and the pouring water.
Okay. I'm sort of carefully trying to avoid any muck on the ground, and I go, "You boy."
He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry there, sir. Oh, you did give me a fright."
My apologies. I didn't mean to.
He drops his pail on the ground and like water spills on the ground. He sort of quickly like scoops it up and like sets it down so it's standing on the floor. Is there anything I can do for you, sir?
Oh yes, absolutely. Just come a little closer. I need to ask you something quite important.
He looks a bit sort of like confused, but he walks over to you.
And I kneel down to his level and I say, "Do you remember that I stayed in a room at this homely tavern several days ago, and you offered to fill up my bath?"
That's right. Yeah, that's my job.
Do you know who is staying there now?
He says, "Well, I think it's some small fella."
Some small fellow, a halfling?
Yeah, he was staying here before, but he was in one of the smaller rooms. And then, well, when you gone and they said we were going to rent out your room again, he said that he'd have it. He said he got a bit more money now and he wanted a bit better room, so he's in it.
So you're saying that he has stayed here before? He simply got a better room?
Yeah. He was here when he spoke to one of your friends when he was here, the mean-looking one, the one I've seen on all the pictures around town.
Oh, was he now? I get out a silver piece and give it to him and say, "Thank you, Halfwit. You have been most helpful."
He takes it off you and says, "Oh, thanks very much, sir."
And I go back to the others.
Okay. You rejoin the others in the bar.
Right, more wine for me, I think. I can't go and refresh myself since I no longer have a room, but I will enjoy what there is downstairs.
If this inn is unable to provide better food and better rooms on the morrow, perhaps we should seek another one.
That's what I was saying to him. That's what you're supposed to do, apparently, when you bargain and haggle. You threaten to move on elsewhere, and they hopefully go, "No, no, please stay," but he's an orc, so he didn't.
Okay. So, what's the plan, guys?
Well, I'm drinking more wine and waiting for my duck.
Drax is sitting there sipping his beer, thinking on the fate of Ordious and waiting for them to tell him what actually happened. It was fire, orcs, writing. What
Right,
could have possibly gotten down there?
I'm going to go now.
Are you leaving us, or do you wish to travel with us?
Travel with you where?
First, we must speak to this guard and learn about the guest list, and wherever that leads us. After that, we have other matters to pursue, such as the origin of this swan. I say, tapping it.
I'm looking for members of my family. If you have seen anyone that looks similar to me, probably not, but if you have, I appreciate that information.
Perhaps there are things you require that. Perhaps there are things that you require which might be easier accomplished with companions.
And what will I find myself doing if I travel with you?
What needs to be done to accomplish our goals, I suppose. That could be anything from merely speaking to others to fighting and defending ourselves when necessary, or when we feel it is just, such as the ogrillions we fought.
As you're talking, the door opens and you see the elven figure of Brios Conmac, the owner of the tavern, walks in. As he sort of gets to the threshold, he pauses and looks outside and says, "Finnan, just have the cart taken round the back and have Yarg offloaded. We'll get those supplies into the kitchen and then we can begin preparations. Getting Yarg to hook up the barrels as usual. I think I'm going to retire to my quarters for the evening. Can you take care of this yourself?" And you hear like a muffled voice from outside go, "Yeah, of course you can. I'm fine here." Good, my boy. Well, I'm going to retire for the evening. Take care. As he walks in and he sees the four of you sat there for the first time, you notice his eyes narrow a little bit as he sees Zan sat there. And he sort of almost involuntarily, like before he can realise it, so instinctively takes like half a step back.
I give him a greeting in Elvish.
He nods his head and says, in Elvish, "It is a pleasure to see you again. I'd feared that you would not be returning given the length of time that you had been away."
Me neither. However, I have a slight dilemma. According to your bartender, you have rented out my room to another.
Alas, that is true. With business being what it is, we cannot afford to have a room stay empty for that number of days, especially with a bill remaining unpaid. However, never let it be said that I am uncharitable, given the help that one of your comrades gave me in recent days. If you need somewhere to stay for the evening, you are welcome to spend the evening in my own quarters. And that offer obviously extends to your companions.
I nearly drop the wine glass because by this point I am slightly tipsy, and say, "Well, that is more than generous. So I was simply going to explain to you why we were gone for so long. It wasn't intentional at all. We were at the Scaris ball. There was that terrible incident. We lost our carts and we had to walk all the way back. But that is wonderful news. I will happily chip in, as they say, money-wise."
I'm sure we can work out an equitable arrangement. But I have heard something of these incidents that you speak of. When Lord Garth Bothran of Battlebridge returned here, that there was a good deal of commotion concerning it. Tell me, I must know, have these villainous rumours that I've heard regarding your companion Ordious, do they have any basis in truth?
I look around and very quiet.
I just nod.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I just nod.
Whisper really
He
quiet,
shakes his
sort
head
of,
gravely.
yes, but you. Yeah.
I'm looking back and forth. I understand nothing up until the point that Alvastar does the neck motioning thing. I went, oh, I get what we're talking about.
But then
Brios shakes his head sadly and says, "It seems almost impossible to imagine. He seemed like such a good person when I spoke to him. He was quite sympathetic to the troubles that I've suffered in my life. And he was very helpful to me."
Although there is
I can't quite reconcile it.
there is one thing that you should know that didn't really seem important until now, until your young stable boy mentioned it. There was, I believe, a halfling, perhaps a gnome. He just described him as a short person, who now has the room that I previously rented out, and he mentioned that Ordious had spoken to him, which I remember he did. And come to think of it, Ordious did not really act anything like the way he did before he spoke to this person. It might not be any kind of correlation, but it does seem a little odd.
Well, I know that I know the gentleman that you're referring to, Alfio Baroness. He comes in here sometimes. He had been staying in the common rooms. However, he asked me if he could upgrade to one of the more spacious rooms, one of the more noble rooms, for want of a better term. And since we had no reason not to rent it out, not really knowing of your whereabouts or how long you were going to be away, I of course agreed. I believe he's up there now. Now I come to think of it, but he certainly was when I left earlier on.
It is just interesting because, as far as I know, Ordious had other intentions before he spoke to him, or round about that time.
Well, I'm not really.
Are you saying that this halfling is some sort of enchanter? He's taking control of your friend's mind?
No, absolutely no proof of that
At which
at
point,
all.
Brius bursts out laughing and he says, "Well, I can say many things about Mr. Baroness, but he's certainly not an enchanter."
Nothing like that at all, but perhaps it would be interesting if we spoke to him about Ordious.
I think your family matters must take precedent. They seem the most timely. Ordious, I think, merely fooled us all, making us believe he was something he wasn't.
Well, if it will help you, says Brius, I'm certainly happy to go up and knock on Mr. Baroness's door and see if he's willing to come down and speak to you, but that's about the best I can do, I'm afraid. I don't actually know for sure that he's still in his room. I just know he was when I left earlier.
Watum is right. My family matters are far too important, really, to ignore at this point. Do you know how long this halfling is going to be staying for?
No, alas not. He's paying by the day. Although he's tipping extremely well.
That also seems quite interesting. But
I believe he's staying up there with a woman.
I guess he is trying to... something that I noticed up here, where your men try to impress your women up here with coin.
That does indeed seem to be the human way, says Brius. You notice that as he's been talking, Zan, he seems to have like recovered himself a bit from his initial sort of like knee-jerk reaction of like, holy shit, it's a drow.
Hey, he's not stabbing me, so in my books he's a good person.
He seems to sort of like recovered his composure, and he's now sort of every inch the friendly sort of innkeeper that he's been previously. It almost seems like that was just sort of like an instinctive reaction. Like he walked in, he's like, "Whoa, drow!" and then he sort of like recovered himself. Yes, it does seem to be the human way to try and impress the females with coin, pleasant things, finery, etc.
Not for all humans. In some places, we merely talk to them.
Then it would appear your people, and he nods, smiles at you two, are far wiser than many of the tribes of humanity that I've encountered with him. And he smiles.
Atum sits back pleased, smiling as well.
It could just be the wine talking with me. Speaking of which, I wouldn't mind another. Why don't I get this second bottle or two?
I have already finished one glass. You seem much more capable of drinking this than I do.
Please allow me.
It is mere
Good to
appetizer
have
wine.
company.
I'd like
Given that
something.
you've been... So go ahead.
I was just going to say I'd like something more medium-bodied with my bird.
Not a problem, says Brias. I'll go and fetch you something from behind the bar. And he heads off. So you see you've been sort of quaffing the wine with gay abandon, Avastar. Can you please make me a constitution save?
Of course. Well, my bonus is good, but my roll was terrible, so I got a 6 in total.
Okay, by this point, obviously, I'm not going to imply penalties or anything like that. It's just as a role-play thing. However, your character is extremely drunk. We all know what being drunk's like, and your character is fairly smashed at the moment, especially given the fact you've been walking and not really eating well. The wine's gone straight to your head. And like you say, Watum's still sat there with like his one glass, like, oh, this is pleasant, I'm sipping this, and you've like tanked most of the bottle, and you're now like, bring me another bottle.
So
yeah,
maybe
pretty smashed.
Yeah, so maybe the odd time when I go to the bathroom, I sort of stand up and go, ooh, that feels a little, ooh, the world is spinning a bit. That's interesting.
So where Zan's from, getting drunk in public is a big no-no, because that's when you'd get assassinated or taken advantage of. Can't really rely on people to not do that. Yeah. So, you know, Zan is more likely to think Avastar is just playing possum almost, or something like that, rather than actually being drunk. She's going to continue the conversation normally. Like, it seems like you just want your room back from this man, and
yes, but
you've concocted this story about him having some influence over your friend.
No. Well, okay, maybe a little, but that's not the point. So I thought that before I started drinking. Okay, it's nothing to do with that. I'm just enjoying it, and it's lovely. And I've got a new one on the way. We should go with the bird. I've been walking a long way. I've had a very empty stomach, so I've obviously gone straight to my head.
The meal is bought. The meals are, and whatever food you've ordered is brought over. Brias puts a very slender bottle of a clear liquid with a slight yellowish tinge to it. He puts it down on the table next to you and says, "This is a bottle of elderflower wine from my own store. I hope you all enjoy it. I would advise you to be cautious, though it is fairly potent." Well, I will leave you all to your evening. My quarters are through there. Please feel free to treat them as your own rooms, at least for the evening, and I'll see what I can sort out for you in the morning.
When he goes, I grab the bottle and pull out the cork and say, I think this is the point in etiquette school where I taste the wine, and I kind of pour out a massive amount, whereas normally you do like a little tiny bit. And I sort of mock the whole process of tasting it. I kind of swirl it and sniff it. And
I imagine you pour out a glass and you put it on the table and go, oh, lovely, and then you push that away and like take the bottle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you may taste this glass.
Here is some for the rest of you. I'm not greedy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not that bad, but I probably will be at some point. But I'm sort of just making a big deal about how silly the whole tasting process is. And he says, well, this smells like wine to me. It smells like elderflower. So we've got the right liquid. Cheers.
Yes, your cheers.
I will pour about 1/5 of a glass of it to sample it, but that's it.
It has a very strong sort of flowery aroma to it, but you take the merest sip of it and you can tell it's quite strong, quite alcoholic.
Yeah, sips are all I need.
Perhaps even if your so-called family matters are so important, that halfling creature is just upstairs.
Oh,
It's not such a deviation.
Decisions, yes, but one thing could lead to another. what
we
if
have
he
been
really
invited
did?
to a private room.
Yes, and I don't really want anything wrong with the room by the time we leave it. So let's just get the family thing out of the way first, maybe. I don't know. I love this wine. I want some more.
In the morning, we can go visit this guard who gave you the invite. Perhaps
Yeah,
he'll be
that's right. Yeah.
able to offer us someone to speak to next.
Oh, I'm sure. But we should appreciate right now how good we have it. I mean, look at this place. It's gone to the dogs since we left. It even smells a bit, but, you know, they've got really good food out for us and really good wine, and that's really good. As I sort of drink a bit more, you can actually see little tiny sparks of lightning coming from my fingers, just sort of involuntarily.
Yes, interesting.
Drax
Well, I
yourself.
think I will retire soon for the evening.
It's
Drax,
the morning.
I thought we were having supper. Oh, this is the next day? I jumped ahead.
No, this is the morning. This is not even lunchtime.
Yeah, this is the morning.
I thought we walked all day.
No, we arrived in the morning though. Everstar got really smashed before lunch.
Yay!
That's why this is so funny.
Pretty much. You guys are eating breakfast, and Avastar's like, "Bring on the wine! It's time for like a working."
Okay.
Yeah, just then Drax is looking at.
For you, it might not be the morning. Like your sleep schedule might be fucked. So.
Yeah, probably.
It was an interesting party we attended, Drax. It started out pleasant, with masks and odd rituals I was unfamiliar with that Avastar did his best to teach me. And then it got violent and dangerous. A duel, a fire broke out. Avastar was challenged to a duel, and then the horrible business with Ordious. It is not an experience I would care to repeat.
Oh yeah, well too. Could you need to teach me the cleaning spell thing? You need to teach me that.
Perhaps when your mind is a little bit more sound. You do not seem in the most receptive frame for learning magic at this time.
I'm fine.
You know how precise some movements can be.
Can you like show me when I finish my food so I can clean the plate? I think that will look really awesome and really like people will
It is
see.
not a parlor trick I can teach you in a few seconds. It requires several hours training, and I would prefer to do so without being stared upon.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It looks quite simple to me.
Fingers need to be positioned in just the right way, and the correct gestures need to be stated while the proper inflection comes from the words. No, it is more precise than that.
So I sort of go back to eating. I'm kind of wolfing down the rest of the bird.
Okay, Drax, what are you up to?
Drax is catching up with these guys, trying to get an idea of this new guy is. He's not seen his kind before, not that that's a problem. Like, son, were you at this party?
No.
How did you come to meet my other two colleagues?
I tried to save a village from ogres, and they all died. Then
The
I met
ogres
these
or the
two,
villagers?
the party members I was with. Then I met these two.
So this is your first time in Battlebridge?
Yes, I've travelled a long, long way, more than you can possibly imagine, to get here.
Are you looking for someone? Or something? Generally, our colleagues all seem to be after something. Alvastar, it seems, another drink at the moment. To him a good bed. Myself. Possibly a clear mind. I should say this town has got certainly more sinister while they've been away. I found a man who was poisoned.
How so?
A few days ago. Poisoned by some kind of creature, it would seem. There were some bite marks on him, and he complained about
poison. Is the poison passed?
John, did he make it? I don't know.
You've not heard any more about him.
Okay.
The last you heard, he was still in the Temple of Abraham, sort of with the priests ministering to him.
I tended to him as best I could, but it wasn't really my place to be there in a way. I don't know if you're a religious man, but in a way I was trespassing. But I wanted to try and find information. He spoke about a creature with yellow eyes. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
I believe you call them cats.
No, not a cat. A cat could not leave this kind of mark. It was poison, like teeth marks, puncture marks.
In the
Dark
Underdark, we called them spiders, but they have black eyes.
I think I've seen them. They are things with many legs, but
I believe you also have the reptile, and I believe I participated in a hunting game up here once on the surface for dwarf, and he told me of many strange creatures he had encountered throughout his travels. And let's just say the idea of what's possible has been stretched, so it could be anything. If you want, if you take me to this man, I can take a look at his wounds.
do you have some skill with medicine?
I have skill with herbs, and I've grown up in a place where venom is most common.
I'd be happy to do so. I'm sure the Church of Abraham would not mind someone else taking a look.
Remember that it is Avastar's issue that is the more pressing one, time-wise. We can revisit this after.
Oh, of course.
Didn't you just say there's a dying man with poison?
You do have a point.
I think your perceptions on what is your priorities are a bit muddled.
I'm sure Avastar is most keen to sort his family matter out.
Avastar, you'd sort of like phased out a bit, staring into the endless bottle of wine that you've been quaffing from. But you did hear Drax and Zan saying something about a man being poisoned and family matters, and you vaguely heard Watum saying he thought that your family matter was more pressing, then someone's priorities had got muddled. You were sort of phasing in and out of the conversation, to be perfectly honest.
Drax, what was poison to? Yeah, there was poison at the ball. Someone was poisoned or something. Yes, there was someone, I think maybe it was a bad punch, but they drunk lots and they looked like they were dying, and then Ordious rushed in saying, "Oh, he's been poisoned," and then he rushed off again, and then there was a fire and carts and... What?
Can you remember if there was any reports of puncture marks on the person who was poisoned?
I don't know. I was too busy getting slapped in the face with a really hard glove.
Rather a glove than a mace, Alistair. Come on.
We were not present when this poisoning occurred.
I may be a little drunk, Watum, but I do remember what happened. Don't you remember there was that big, massive scene someone was found out to be poisoned, and then what's her name said, right, everyone take your really expensive masks off. I threw mine to the ground, and then Nico came up to me and challenged me to the duel. Boom.
I do not remember them announcing that someone had been poisoned. This guard who invited you, Terramon, let us seek him out.
What, right now? I'm a bit busy.
This party must have left quite a mark on you, Avastar. I've never seen you drink like that.
Well, you know, I had a little bit of a think over the past few days, and I thought, you know what, you're not under the thumb of your family anymore, and I enjoyed the drinks at the ball, and this is a really nice wine, so why shouldn't I drink more of it, you know? We've only got so much in our lives, and I could be dead within a few days if this bloody duel is going to happen. I know I said I would do it, but I don't exactly want to, because it means I have to fight with some little rapier thing. So...
Would you rather me fight him?
I don't even know how the rules work with that. I would like
You do know, Avastar,
someone.
that it is permitted for you to choose a champion to fight on your behalf, if you wish.
Okay.
Because obviously, like elderly members of the family, etc., obviously they can't fight their own duels if they're really infirm. But it is seen as sort of like a bit of a sort of, you know, you're admitting that you're not really man enough to deal with it yourself, but it's very minor. It's permitted.
Well, Drax, I really like you too, and I might consider it. But the problem is, this is Nico, and he might sort of use that against me. I saw the red. Ooh, excuse me. I saw the red in his eyes, and he obviously wanted to fight me and me alone. But I would appreciate maybe some training in the art of pointing a sharpened stick in someone's face.
Are you telling me you've never been in a fight before, Avastar?
I have. Me and Watu, we fought 3 wargs. Of course, we've been in fights. But I use my powers, my abilities. I don't use blades unless I absolutely have to.
You cannot use it in a duel?
Watum and Zan, can you please make me a perception roll?
Ew.
Okay.
Ooh, that's some actual dice for you.
I wish you would ask me to attack someone, because
11.
then my critical hit would not have been wasted. 23.
Okay, the two of you, as Avastar's quite loudly sort of talking about waving pointed sticks around, obviously being not sort of directly involved in that conversation, you see sort of like one of the fishermen who sat on the table sort of give a sidelong glance over in the direction of your party's table, and you hear one of them go, "Oh yeah, he's starting a bit early, isn't he?" And a couple of his mates are like, "Yeah, look, I can't have this drink by the look of him. And he's got to have had in the morning."
It is the morning. Afternoon. So, like, all I hear is some people kind of snickering about Avastar.
You hear that, however, as the two of you are sort of listening to that and you're sort of ignoring the conversation that's going on, both Watum and Zan, you hear what sound like sort of heavy footfalls approaching the entrance to the tavern. You can hear the sound of jingling and clanking metal.
Heavy, like heavy, like an ogre, or heavy like a fat halfling.
Heavy as in like human wearing armor.
So I turn and look at the door, because I haven't seen like armored people walking around before. Before the door even opens.
And indeed, the door does open, and 4 people wearing the town guard uniforms of Battlebridge come walking into the room. They look around the room. Then their leader, who is a youngish human with sort of like slicked back hair, seems to spot someone at the bar, and all of the guards walk over towards the bar. The only person you can see at the bar at present is Nyog, the barkeep. And they clank their way over to him.
Is that common?
So, of course, I've fought
It's
before,
not
but
something I've seen before.
I don't use blades unless I have to, Drax. It's not my nature. I was given these powers for a reason. I want to hone them and get better at them. It's what speaks to me.
And are you telling me I'm sure I understand this, are you telling me you can't use these abilities in a duel?
I don't think they'd let me know. Nico has something against magic anyway, so even if there was a rule, then he'd probably try and say no.
I'm guessing we grew up in different places. When I was learning how to defend myself, I was taught to use everything I could.
Yeah, but this is a duel. It's just a little posh show of, oh, there's a bit of a problem here, so it has to be settled with a duel and all that stuff.
So Drax takes a moment to sort of think. So what you're saying is, it's a political thing. It's like it's a game.
Yeah, exactly. It's for people's entertainment, and it's strange because it's so well-to-do and yet so kind of barbaric. People don't talk about things; they duel each other, and then if someone dies, then the survivor is the winner and the person who was right. I mean, so silly.
So surely, if it's some sort of game, if you don't want to fight him, then just say it's beneath you to fight him. Find someone else to fight him.
Look, I didn't even say that to him. I said I would fight him later, and he's apparently gallivanted off back to my noble house in order to say how much of a weakling I am, and that it's against all these rules and all that. You can't just say no.
At this point, an outraged orc gruff voice from over in the direction of the bar goes, "What do you mean I'm under arrest?"
Whoa, no need to shout.
It sounds like he's being arrested.
Huh?
I believe that is cause for alarm. Unless arrested means something different over here.
What
Usually
for?
means some kind of crime's committed.
This is a really nice duck.
What
Why
possibly
should
could
he
he
be
have done
arrested
all
for
that?
Shh. The leader of the guard says, "Now then, orc, don't make this any more difficult on yourself than it needs to. We're taking you in for questioning regarding your association with a wanted fugitive. Please come with us peacefully, or we'll have to escort you by force." Which
Seem to relate to our old companion Ordious. In which case, I hope he is caught.
You notice the orc sort of looks around as if he's not really sure what to do. At which point the three guards stood behind their leader have all sort of got their weapons to hand in case it does break out.
I am going to approach them.
Yeah, not a problem. You walk up to him.
I am also going to approach them a moment after Zan. When he goes up, I'll get him.
Is the law here different? Can you arrest people when they have not committed a crime?
At which point the guard commander, you assuming to be the young human, turns around towards you. Out of his glove, he takes a scroll and holds it open in front of you, and you see that on it it is signed by the Lord Garth Bothran, and it says the guard captain, who is the bearer of this scroll, is fully licensed to question any of those of orcish heritage who may have associations with rebels and fugitives.
Okay, so Is that this exact wording?
Pretty much, yeah. It's probably a bit more flowery and legalese than that, but that's the gist of it.
Okay, so when they say question, it might actually say taken for questioning.
Yeah. It basically says detain and bring in for questioning.
I look at it and realize that I don't really know enough about the local law to deal with this. So let's play in a half-orc lawyer.
He tucks the scroll back into his glove.
How many orcs do you have in Battlebridge?
Well, there are a number within the. Are you asking the guard captain or?
Yeah.
There are a large number of orcs in Battlebridge, most labourers and such like menial positions. Many of them live in the shanty towns, what people locally call Troll Town, east and west to the north of the main city. A foul place to be sure, but we'll be working our way through them, bringing them in for questioning. We can't afford to have any outbreaks here of these terrorist activities like those that broke out of the Lascaris estates.
And how do you think the orcs would feel if they were all brought in for questioning?
It's not my job to speculate on how they feel, sir. It's my job to bring them in and question them and to determine whether they are in league with these rebels.
It is your job to keep the peace, is it not? If you antagonize the orcs like this, will they not band together like horned spiders in a circle?
One of the guards stood behind him, goes, "Looks like we've got ourselves an orc lover here, Captain. Maybe we should take him in for questioning as well." The captain just sort of holds up his hand to tell his man to be quiet.
If you wish, it will not be helpful.
My remit only extends as far as taking those of orcish heritage, and I'm no expert in bloodlines, and I'm not entirely even sure what you are, sir, but I would hazard a guess to say that you are no orc.
You would be correct.
Well, then you, sir, are not my concern here today.
Well, I would urge caution in antagonizing the orc population. You wouldn't want them to get more rowdy. You might have more incidents. But I'm not standing in the way of your duty.
Thank you, citizen. We'll take your advice under advisement. At which point he turns back to Nyarg, who still stood there looking a bit puzzled at this conversation. He says, "Now don't make this any more difficult than it has to be, Orc. Come along with us." At which point he looks sort of torn as to whether he's like tempted to like throw down with these guys, but eventually he realizes there's more of them and they're armed, and he's not. And he's sort of looking a bit glum, stomps his way around the bar, and he begins to be escorted towards the door, surrounded by these guards. As that's happening, you hear Nyarg shout, "Finnan! Finnan!" At which point, out of like the back room, having been working in the kitchens, the young half-elf Finnan pokes his head out, and he's like, "Nyarg, what in blazes is going on here?" He's like, I don't know. They want to question me. Something about fugitives and that. Can you watch the bar for a bit? I've got to go with them." Finnan looks like really worried, and he's like, "Well, yeah, of course, Nyarg. Do you want me to get my father? I know he was planning on retiring for the day, but I'm sure he'd want to know." Nyarg's like, "No, don't worry him about it. I'm sure it'll all be fine. Probably just a misunderstanding." "Oh well, okay, but if you do need anything, just send us a messenger or something." Yeah, I will do. You just keep an eye on the bar. Don't worry about your father about it. You know he gets when it gets near the end of free trade and it starts getting into winter with his moods. I don't want to worry him anymore. I'm sure I'll be fine. I'll be back before you know it. At which point, as they're walking out, any of you who have particularly sensitive hearing hear one of the guards at the back go, "Yeah, not likely." And then they continue escorting him out to the front door.
If these orcs have enough to have their own area in town, this antagonization of them will lead to rioting. I've seen this before.
You may well be correct, but it is not something we can concern ourselves right now. We have other things we need to address first.
Drax watches them leave with an unpleasant look on his face. After he hears that guard, making a mental note, if that orc is harmed, there will be consequences.
Well, I believe this one is too, as you say, inebriated to deal with their family matters.
I think we should go speak to this guard captain and learn what we can.
Mm-hmm. Should we leave Alvastar here to finish his wine and seek solace in his cups?
That is up to him, but time is a factor here, as his cousin spoke of.
Is this
Even
church
if this
on the
guard
way
captain
to...
is able to provide us with information, we do not know how long
This would take.
getting the information might take. We should get that started.
Is this church on the way to this guard captain?
If you would all like to see the map, I can bring that up for you.
Oh,
I know it isn't, but I'm asking Drax.
I believe it's across town. It's within maybe a slight detour, but it's not directly close.
It's in the opposite direction, I believe.
Pretty much. Temple of... I don't actually see the guard tower. Is it on the other side?
Right,
It's,
no
it's
change.
there.
Oh.
Let me zoom out for a moment. There we go. Hopefully you can see that, the civic tower there. And at the moment, you guys are there.
Cool.
And the Temple of Abraham is there.
Mm-hmm. We could go there after the speaking to this guard captain. We don't know if the information he has would be any use to us, if he has any information at all.
And what is it that you wish to know?
He was the one who invited Avastar to this ball in the first place. Perhaps he can point us in the direction of someone who has a guest list. And from this guest list, we can track down witnesses to convey the truthfulness of our version of the story.
Didn't you... the poisoned gas. Sorry, this... the events of this ball were kind of a mystery to me.
Oh, as I said to Drax already, we were at a ball, there was masks and merriment, and some colorful ceremonies. Then a fire broke out. There was cries of the revealing of masks to be ended early, and a Nico challenged Avastar to a duel, all while the place began to burn and people were trying to flee. It was indeed poor timing, and yet he insisted on it right there like a fool.
If this place was on fire, and two people in a corner were to have a fight, and you were to evacuate this building,
We're
and
not in the
someone were to
corner.
ask
It was-
you
no,
what
the
happened,
challenge came in.
what would you pay more attention to? And
Are you
people's memories
saying
are
that
often
looking for
fallible.
witnesses is? But are you saying that looking for witnesses is futile and we should not bother?
Yes. You're much better off confronting this Nico directly.
That will be done in any eventuality. We just wish to confront him with as much information as possible. More importantly, it is not Nico who is the problem, but what he might do for Abastar's reputation. And freedom.
Hey,
Okay, time is getting on a little bit now. You've noticed a few more people have started to like filter into the bar. Various workers from around the town are obviously on their breaks or coming in for a bit of early lunch and stopping in, ordering food. You can see that Finnan, who is still behind the bar, the half-elf youth, still looks quite worried. There's been no sign of the orc Nyarg reappearing.
in any event, if we're doing anything today, and if you wish my services, we best leave now. I shall want to look at this poisoned man.
I have been trying to get to leave for some time now. I'm going to stand up.
Okay, not a problem. You stand up.
Let us be about it then. Avastar, you coming?
Where are you all going? Why are you all swaying around?
We have stated this 4 times now. Where
We're off to see a man about a list.
I was
They're going for your benefit.
Sorry. Okay. Alright. Just give me a minute. And I, like, try and stand up.
Okay, you sway a little, but you do manage to stand up.
Okay, lead the way.
I will head towards this guard tower.
Okay, not a problem. You all...
On the during my off time, I took some time to travel around Battlebridge, just to walk around.
You
to
did,
know
yep.
it. Going to make use of that knowledge.
Yep, not a problem. You head across the old bridge, then take a right down Riverside Walk towards the large, imposing tower, the Civic Tower, with its purple dragon stone roof. As you arrive there, you can see there's a number of guards sort of stationed around it, as there normally is. As you get a little bit closer, Watum, Avastar, and Drax, you recognise 2 of the guards stood on duty. There's about 8 guards in total, but you recognise 2 of them as Aldez and Perseus, the 2 guards you've encountered previously.
Second thought, given the reaction of some of the elven townsfolk here, perhaps it would be best if you went in alone.
If you wish. I'm going to approach one of these 2 guards. We would speak with your captain. It will only be brief.
Okay, as you approach him, you see Perseus, who is the guard who was possessed and helped out by you guys. He still looks a little bit shaky and less than his former rambunctious self, but he appears to have got himself together, and he's obviously on active duty, although Aldous occasionally shoots him a sort of slightly worried look. As you approach, Aldous, the shorter and fatter of the 2 with a bristling beard, says, "Oh, all right there. You want to speak to Captain Talamon?"
Yes, just for a few moments, please.
Yes,
I'm going to ask him a
please.
question or 2.
I'm sorry I've got to ask this, but, what with everything going on, can I ask what it's about?
It's between me and him, thank you very much.
It is about the
I'll-
recent ball we were at.
Aldous looks at Avastar and he's like, "Are you drunk at this time?"
Well, of course I am. Can't you smell the wine on me?
I don't have to smell it. I can see plants wilting as you're walking past them.
Ha 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 ha, very funny. I know it's a bit early, but yeah, of course I'm drunk.
A bit early.
I don't act like this on my own accord, you know.
Oh, I see. Yeah, someone force-fed you all that beer, is it? And he said,
No, I mean, you know what I'm like normally, and obviously I'm not acting that way, so just let me go and have a little chat to him. It's about the invitation he gave me.
"Well, I can go and ask Captain Talamon whether you can speak to him. I'm not sure if it's given his the current tenuous state. I'm not sure you're going to see him in your current
Yeah, but it's
states
important.
for that.
It's about the Lascaris ball. It's about what happened there.
The rest of us are sober. We can speak to him if necessary. Remind
All
him
right,
of
well-
our recent service to Battlebridge and tell him that our questions will be brief. We will not take much of his time.
Okay, I'll go and ask him." Aldous disappears back into the tower. He reappears about sort of 5 minutes later, and he says, "Well, the captain is quite busy, but he says he can spare you a few minutes in light of the service that you did for the town recently. So follow me."
I am grateful. I will follow him.
He leads you into the tower, up a number of sort of flights of circular stairs until you get to Captain Talamon's quarters. He knocks on the door, and you hear an imperious voice say, "Yes, come in." At which point you're let into the room. You can see Captain Talamon wearing his breastplate, his metal helmet with a red feather emerging from it. He's sat behind a desk. There's piles of paperwork on the desk. He looks a little bit flustered, to be honest. But as you walk in, he gestures at a couple of chairs and says, he's writing frantically even while he's talking to you. And he says, "I'm afraid I'm very busy at the minute. I can't spare you very long, but please have a seat."
So I'm going to
Thank you for
try and
seeing us.
move over to the seat without him looking, and do so in a kind of a weird, rigid manner, and tensing everything up in order to not stagger around everywhere. So I'm
Okay.
almost kind of walking a bit jerkily.
Can you please make me an athletics roll? You do have the
Yes.
disadvantage on this.
Oh, I thought I would. Fantastic. Okay, 18.
Yep, not a problem. You manage to pull it together, and you sway a little bit, but he doesn't seem to notice as his head's down and he's writing, and you sit down in one of the chairs. Yeah, just go on then. What is it? What is it?
Yeah, sorry to bother you, but I would like to talk to you about my invitation that you gave me due to the recent incidences that happened at the Lascaris estate.
He puts down his quill, looks at you, and says, "Go on."
Well, I have some disputes with my family, and I would like to acquire witnesses who were there along with me, and use them to help me in my disputes with my family.
Witnesses to what, pray tell?
Witnesses to some buffoon by the name of Nico challenging me to a duel.
Okay, and what are you looking for? A list of attendees, or?
Yes, a list of attendees who were in the main ballroom when all the masks were told to come off.
Well, you really have to speak to someone from House Lascaris about that. I was obviously given an invite, but I didn't draw up the list myself.
Were you in attendance?
No. I'm a humble guard captain. I wasn't. It wasn't given for me to attend myself.
Can I ask why you had it in the first place then? Who was it for?
It was for you, I believe.
But why did you get it? Who told you to give it to me?
Well, I was given to it by our esteemed tax collector, our seneschal here.
It is still a little confusing. Surely there must be some reason why you gave it to me as opposed to another noble in this place.
Well, yes, I gave it to you since it had your name on it.
But then
I was given it by Demodocus. He, our seneschal, our tax collector. He's a member of the Lascaris house. He said he was going to be busy and he'd been given a number of invites. He asked someone who knows people in the town. I come into contact with a lot of people via my guard's reports and via my own travels around the town. He asked me if I came across any of these people, would I do him a favour and give the invitations out?
Perhaps this person can give us the information we seek then.
Well, his office is just on the floor below this one.
many
Feel free.
thanks. We will not waste any more of your time.
Okay, as you're about to leave, Watum, Telemon like puts his hand on your arm and sort of like draws you a little closer to him, and in a very whispered voice only you hear he says, "Is your friend quite well?"
Not at the moment. I expect him to recover 12 to 24 hours.
Ah, I see. He nods and sits back behind his desk and begins writing his reports.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got my meaning. So, yeah, we'll head downstairs to this, what did you call it, Demascara?
Demodocus.
Demodocus.
When you introduce, I'm just going to ask John, when you put in an NPC that might be a repeating one, maybe the first time you put them, you could spell their name out for us, so we can take notes.
Yeah.
It's in the Obsidian portal, so.
I'm quite happy to do that though and spell out the name for you the first time. That's fine. Okay, you head down to the floor below, and you can see there is indeed like another sort of chamber on it'll be the second floor of the tower. There's a large ornate wooden door, a guard standing on either side of it.
Okay. Well, I guess we're going to have to address the guard. I need to speak to Mr. Lascaris briefly. We were sent here from Telemon.
The guard nods, he bangs to the back of his hand on the door and then says, Seneschal Lascaris, there's some people out here to see you. You hear a voice from inside going, "Well, I'm busy, tell them to go away."
Tell him that it's important. Tell him it's about the Lascaris ball.
He hammers on the door again with the back of his hand. Seneschal, sir, they say it's important. They say it's about the Lascaris ball. You hear a sigh in this voice. Says, "Well, show them in, show them in." At which point the guard opens the door, and you see this fat man with sort of wobbling jowls, wearing this furred cloak, leaning on a stick, sat in a fairly comfortable-looking armchair. As you walk in, he says, "Well, what is it?"
You gave me an invitation, did you not, for the Lascaris ball?
That's right. Yes, I handed them off to Captain Telemon. I was busy with my my fiscal matters on that occasion. I couldn't possibly have given them out myself, but I didn't like to let my family down. So I asked the good captain if he'd do me a favour and dole them out on my behalf.
Yes, beginning to make more sense. Well, you see, I have a little bit of a problem with some of my family. Something to do with a duel, and so I would like to take a look, if you don't mind, at the guest list for the ball.
Well, I do have a draft copy of it around here somewhere. And he moves over to a desk and he starts looking through the drawers. Eventually, he takes out what appears to be a scroll and hands it over to you. There's a long list of names on it from various different noble houses.
Thank you. Do you know which of these guests reside here in Battlebridge?
Well, quite a few of them. I don't keep exact tracks of people's comings and goings. If you pick a particular house you want to speak to, I'm sure I can advise you whether they have members in the city.
It's not really about the house, it's more about who was there at the time. Witnesses, you see.
Well, I know that House Lane, most of them are out in their holdings in the folate. They don't really tend to have many people in the city. I think House Nazara have got a few of their sort. Well, if you want to deal with them, considering their reputation, but I believe they have a few of their members residing in Battlebridge. Let's see, who else have we got? Obviously, there's House Kasai there. That they have some vineyards just outside of the city, but they do have some members inside Battlebridge.
House Kasai sounds like a good place to start. Were two?
Yes. The sooner we can find these witnesses, the sooner we can put the lies.
And they have a vineyard as well.
Well, if you want to find one of them in a hurry, I wouldn't advise going to the vineyards. There's some way towards beyond the southeastern border of the town. But well, they do also have members in the city. Obviously, they sell their fare inside of the city, so they do have some people who reside in Battlebridge. The vast majority of their house is on their family's estates to the southeast.
We thank you for your time, Seneschal.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. If you're looking for members of House Kasaya, they have a small brewery. It's called the Hound and Harlequin Brewery. It's a very good place. I've been there a few times. They make a nice tipple, if I do say so myself. It's just across the South Bridge from here, on the corner of Aegeus Pass and let's see, I think it's Chisel Road.
Do they have rooms at the Hound and Harlequin?
Well, they do have it's mainly a brewery. They do have a small pub on the side of it, but it's not really an inn of sorts. It's just a place where they sell some of their wares.
Well, thank you for your time. We will leave you to your tax collecting.
Good.
We can learn more of your issue here, Avastar, and we will be in a brewery. That should please you.
Vineyard, brewery. At this point, both are appealing.
Okay, so I'm assuming that Watum, Drax, who I assume is with you, and Avastar are heading to this brewery.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
correct?
pick up Zan as soon as we leave, as soon as we spot him, if he's still around.
Are you still about, Zan?
It'll probably take a few minutes to find me. I've just been kind of wandering around this island. Yeah, island, I guess. Or peninsula. I don't know. Area, looking around market stalls and stuff.
Okay, not a problem. So you guys are able to pick up Zan as you start heading towards this brewery. I'll just bring up the map again for you all, if you can see that. You head across the South Bridge, past a large temple building up Chisel Road. And as you get to here, you can see on your left here is a large building that has a wooden sign outside that appears to show a mask of some kind.
Question, we walk past the temple?
Indeed.
Oh, where's the temple to?
The temple is decorated fancifully with stylized depictions of waves and gusts of wind.
Okay, being proficient in religion, could I tell if that's like Telos or...
You can certainly make me a religion roll.
Okay. It's not amazing, but it is a 14.
Okay, not a problem. So looking at the sort of stocky, well-built nature and the amount of stone that's been used in this temple, you would guess that it's of dwarvish construction. It appears a statue of a sort of stylized, stern-looking human figure appears to be a male who appears to be emerging from the waves, would indicate that it appears to be a temple to Njord, who is the dwarven god of the sea and the wind. You can see that the statue, he holds a trident in one hand, and in his other outstretched hand he holds a single gold coin, which you would guess is probably a symbol of the religion, maybe.
Okay, so I'm not really invested in that religion, so I will just walk right past it after noting those features.
Okay, not a problem. You walk past the temple. How about Drax at this point as you're walking past the temple? What's Drax up to?
Do I need to make a roll to make this connection?
Nope.
Or is it perfectly clear?
You forget who Njord is.
I just forget what everything is. Have I been to this temple before? It's the first time I've been to this part of Battlebridge.
You've been in this part of Battlebridge before, but you've not been to the temple specifically, no.
Oh, I didn't know there was a chapel of my very own deity here. I'm going to have to meet the cleric at some point. Although, right now we are in the middle of something.
I'm sorry, did you just say something?
Yes, this is the place of worship of my deity, Njord. This is the grand...
Why do you worship a dwarven sea god?
He's not dwarven, he doesn't belong to any race, despite what the dwarves may tell you. It is, he seeks those who understand the teachings he has to tell. Such as offering sanctuary to those caught in a storm. Such as giving freely, which you can give, but not doing so unwisely.
I think I might have heard of this obscure god in my studies at some point. I thought Telos or Umberlee had killed him at some point.
No, he's very much alive, as far as I'm aware.
You have seen him.
I've felt his presence more than seen him in person.
Ah.
A being as such as that is not meant for mortal eyes, as I'm sure you understand what to do.
Oh. I do not.
You do not? I took you for a religious man. I guess maybe I was wrong. You seem to always follow a faith that you...
I am a believer of Matanwe. Matanwe says that the path we take will guide us to where we need to be. But I do not believe that Matanwe would be ashamed or afraid to show himself to us, to our elders. Perhaps your god is more timid.
As you are having this discussion, walking down the street, are you carrying on past the temple, guys?
Yes, yeah. I'm keeping to the plan we had.
Okay, not a problem. As you get to the
Looking a
point,
bit dizzy.
as you get to the point I've marked on the map, you can see the brewery off to your left. As you look down the road ahead of you, you can see there appears to be a large hole, which is the black patch on the map. You can see there are a few guards stood around it. Now you come to think about it, Drax, you do remember hearing something about there being some sort of subsidence in this part of the city. You didn't really pay it much mind because you were too busy getting involved in your investigations at the time.
What in the hells is that?
It literally looks as though a sort of 40 by 40 foot hole has just like opened up in the street and drops down as though part of the road has collapsed.
You can see that as well, right?
I fear the worst and I run up right to it.
Okay, you run up right to it. As I say, there are a number of guards around it. One of them puts his hand out to you, not in a sort of violent manner, just sort of like stop you pelting into the hole. And he's like, don't get too near the edge, sir. The ground's unstable.
How long has this happened? What's come out of it?
What do you mean? What's come out of it, sir? Nothing's come out of it. It's just a hole. It's dangerous.
It formed on its own?
Yeah, but we think the ground underneath it. Well, since everything's swampland around here, we think it's subsidence. I don't know the details, but apparently the town bigwigs are looking to get it filled in as quickly as possible. But we've had all manner of people trying to climb down it and peer into it. A couple of people have nearly fallen into it. So the stuck us fools on. We've got the shit end of the stick, and we've got to stand guard around it to make sure no fools fall in. If you ask me, anyone who's stupid enough to fall into a hole this obvious deserves what they get.
I look down it. It's longer than 120 feet, right?
Indeed, it does appear to just sort of fall away into blackness.
Right, so 40 by 40 foot hole is 120 feet down. That's pretty large, right?
Yeah.
How are they going to fill it?
It's safe to say it's a big hole. He says, well, I don't know the ins and outs of it. Apparently they're talking to some of the dwarven artificers and the craftsmen in the city. I know they've been in talks with a lot of the stone cutters down on Chisel Road, see if they can do anything. Maybe they can build some sort of like stone cover to go over it. I don't know. I'm not a mason myself. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I've just been told I've got to stand guard here until I'm relieved.
It is interesting. I say, looking at Zan.
I know a thing or two about the underground. If you have any also suspicion, perhaps there are creatures from the underground that try to climb out or make their presence known, you could
I've heard,
find me, Zan.
Zan, whereabouts are you staying?
I point where the common sword is.
Common sword, yeah.
That building over there, the something sword.
Oh yeah, the common sword. Okay, no problems. Well, I did hear one of the people who we took off shift here saying that apparently they're looking into whether they can do some sort of expedition down into that to see if there's anything more dangerous, like pockets of gas or some such down there. But again, I don't know the details. As long as I'm not going down there, I'm happy.
Who is?
The civic council. Lord Bothran, Garth Bothran. Apparently, he sent a messenger to his to the High Lord, his elder brother, see if he can send some people, some specialists down here.
Well, I am, like I said, I'm an expert in the grounds.
Well, next time I'm back at the Civic Tower, I'll mention it to the captain. I'm sure if he wants to be in touch, he will be.
Thank you, Mr.
He laughs when you say Mr. and he said, "You don't need to call me Mr. I work for a living."
Oh,
says
in that case, I'll ask people
fun-
to stop calling me Mr. as well.
It's Finetto.
Alright, Finetto. Thank you for your assistance.
No. And he goes back to his guard duties, standing by the side of this deep hole.
Well, we were headed towards a brewery, so
Indeed.
continue in that
That's right
direction.
outside it.
Indeed, let me just bring the map back up for you. Indeed, the hole is here, you are here, so they're heading to the brewery, which is here.
Oh no, the brewery. That's convenient.
And as I said, you can see this sign outside, which depicts one of those sort of comedy and tragedy masks. It's a creaking wooden sign. You can hear sort of quiet hissing and gurgling coming from inside the building. And next to it, sort of almost though it's been built out of like a small shed, there is a small pub sort of tacked onto the side of it.
I saw a play with that symbol on it once. What kind of a brewery is this?
I have no idea. I am not familiar with breweries. Abastar?
I'm not familiar with breweries. I just like drinking what they make out of them. Well, at the minute I do. I'll probably regret this in the morning, but hey. Where's that person we need to speak to?
Okay, you can see that effectively this is a sort of a one-story wooden building. Like I say, you can hear like hissing and gurgling and what sounds like the clanking of metal inside. And there's this small sort of pub. It's not really an inn or a tavern, just like literally a pub tacked onto the side of it. There is a large wooden door which would appear to lead into the main brewery, and then there is an entrance to this small pub.
Okay. I go in through the nearest door. I'm not exactly in a good position here to make decisions.
Okay, do you want to head into the pub or the brewery?
Pub.
Okay, not a problem, yeah. You walk into this small pub, and it's little more than a small bar, a few stools, and a couple of round tables. There is a young woman. She's got sort of short cut, spiky blonde hair. There's a few people sat around. It's not terribly busy. As you walk in, she looks up and says, so she's polishing a couple of flagons. She looks up and says, "I'll be right with you, just a second." She finishes polishing these flagons and walks over to you and says, "What can I get you?"
You can get me the man who sent out this invitation for me.
She looks at it for a few moments and then sort of peers at it. She appears to be sort of like mouthing the words to herself, and then says, "Well, I think that's Andros's writing."
All I know is that he gave, or whoever it is, gave it to the tax collector of the Lascaris institution, and then they handed it out to me, and then things happened.
She sort of narrows her eyes a bit and says, "Okay. Well, I think he's with Icost in the main brewery. There's a side door there which goes straight into it."
He kind of puts a hand on the table and leans forward a bit and says, "I think you know, being a lady behind the bar, that I'm not really in the best state to go all the way back over there and through a door. Would you mind going instead and getting him for me while I sit here and try and sober up a bit?"
You just walked halfway across the town.
I look at you for a couple of seconds and just look back at her.
Yeah, I suppose I could. I could go and fetch it. And it's Andros you want to speak to? Okay, yeah. I'll.
Andros is writing. Then I want to speak to Andros. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go and get him. She heads off through this side door. As the doors open, this clanking and hissing becomes much louder, and it quietens again as the door is shut behind her. A few moments later, a large, bold man with quite a ruddy-looking complexion, wearing a leather apron, he's wearing sort of brown leather gloves as well, comes walking out into the room, and he's like, "Right, who was it who wanted to speak to me?"
Me!
He sort of looks at you a bit curiously as you go, "Meh."
Yep.
And what is it you wanted to speak to me about?
You're Andros, yes?
That's right, Andros Kusai.
Ah, good. You are probably who I need to speak with then. I received an invitation for the ball, the Lascaris ball, and apparently you were responsible for getting this invitation, handing it to the tax collector and telling him to hand them out to anyone he knew was in the area.
That's right, yes. I'd made a delivery of several carafes of wine and several barrels of my finest ale to the Lascaris estate, and I was asked to bring them back to the town by Madame Lascaris herself.
Would you happen to know who else was at the ball from the invitations that you were given?
Oh, yes, there's lots of people there. Can you be a bit more specific?
Not really. I'm in need of witnesses.
Okay, you're just after. Are you after specifically the people who reside in Battlebridge, or?
Potentially, yes. I have not got much time.
Oh right. Well, let me think. Sorry, it's been a little while since I actually delivered them. But let me see. There was there was Pisa Nazara. She had an invite.
He's another, okay.
Pisa, P-I-S-A.
Oh, right, okay. Seems a bit
let's see.
exotic.
Let's see, who else was there? Yeah, there was a Leon. Let's see, what house was he from again? Sorry, it's terribly difficult. Yes, he's from House Artho. He was I don't know that he lives in Battlebridge, but he was certainly passing through here at the time, and I dropped off his invite to him. He was there. A bit stuffy, if you ask me, but you know what these his sort of like. Let's see, who else was there?
I can envisage.
Yes, there was that surly fellow from House and Nulf, Jory from House and Nulf. He was there.
Jory from House and Nulf.
Yes. Let's see. Who else did we have? I think there was a woman called Lace. She was from House. He looks over at the young woman and he says, "Which house does Madame Lace belong to?" At which point the woman behind the bar says, "I think she's House Agasu." You know, yes, that's right. The followers of the Athena, House Agasu. Yes, that's right. Lace Agasu. She was there. Then he says that there was one for an Avastar Foliage. Obviously, of House
That would
Foliage.
be me.
Oh, right. Sorry,
So
I was
you
just
can
giving
cross that off the list.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there was only really one more. Who else was there? Oh, what was his name again? What was his name? Oh, yes, it was Hildy Bothran. That was it. And that's about it. Those are the invites that I was given.
Okay, that's 5. That's a start anyway. By the way, I almost forgot. Do you happen to have any rooms available?
No, I'm afraid not. Whilst we do have a small pub here for selling some of our artisan products to the more discerning clients, we're more in the business of production of beverages rather than the tavern business.
That's a shame. I've heard a lot of good things about the Horse and Harlequin.
He smiles a bit and says, "Hound and Harlequin."
Yeah, horse, hound. Well, they both partake in the same sport. I was close.
Well, look, if you need to get your head down from it, you do seem to be a little bit worse for wear. We do have a couple of cots in the back. It's nothing fancy, but
he leans in really close and says, I don't want to alarm you, but I'm a little bit bigger than a newborn baby.
No, I didn't mean cots like that, you foolish boy.
Excuse me, I'll have you know I'm nearly 40 years old. But no, sorry, I couldn't.
Really, I had you pegged for about 50.
40, 50. I try not to let age be the pinnacle of my personality.
I think you should take this man up on his offer.
I was just about to. Thank you, Zan. It was a joke. Where are all these cots located, and would I indeed be able to lie down and potentially get another little nightcap drink?
Andros looks across at the young woman who is working behind the bar and says, "Yeah, could you please show this gentleman to one of the drunk cots in the back?" At which point the spiky blonde-haired woman says, "Yes, okay, Andros. If you'll follow me, sir."
Thank you.
And she sort of leads you behind the bar in this small pub where there's like 2 doors. One of them is slightly open. You see the stairs heading down, so you'd assume it may lead to like a cellar or something similar. But she leads you through the other door, opens it up. There's basically 2 sort of cots with a few blankets and sort of straw on them in this back room. You can see there's already a bloke who appears to be. He looks fairly well dressed, but he's obviously sort of seen better days. He looks quite inebriated. He's basically lying sort of spread-eagled on one of the cots, snoring quite loudly.
I'm sure that will not be a problem. How much will this cost me?
Well, it's only a cot. A silver should do it.
Fine. Remind me when I wake up, although I don't know how long that will take.
and Avastar unceremoniously plops down into one of these drunk cots, and within a few moments you are indeed sound asleep. So how about the rest of you now then, as you hear the soft snoring of your inebriated companion from this room?
Well, we have the names.
Okay, then.
We just have to start tracking them down, I guess.
I turn to Drax. Are you sure this is more pressing than trying to cure a poisoned man?
Well, I take Watuma at his word. I was not at this masquerade ball, so I do not know quite what went down personally, but it seems like it was of most dire need.
You were sitting at the table when Avastar's cousin
I don't
approached.
think anyone was listening to you, to be honest.
I heard your tale, but I was not there personally. I don't quite understand the politics of the situation.
When
I think I'm
Avastar's cousin approached him in the bar and spoke to him of the need for expediency in this manner, and that the situation would grow worse if we did not hurry.
Andros, the sort of ruddy-faced, seeming proprietor of this place, is still stood there, and he's like, "Well, if you're going to be tracking down the people on the list that I've just given your inebriated companion, I'd suggest you, if you're looking for a bit of relief and you're looking to take the weight off your shoulders, I'd suggest you start with Piso Nazara. Bloody pronunciations.
Where might we find this person?
Well, if you head south from here, keep going towards the posher side of town. Just before you get to the South Bridge, you know the Temple of Njord near the South Bridge?
I believe so.
Yeah, you must have. If you're coming from the Common Sword, you must have passed it on your way here. Well, there's a building on the other side of the road from there, and trust me, you'll know it when you see it. And he sort of smiles as though he's laughing internally at a joke.
And this can be found there?
Oh yes, Madame Nazara is the owner of that particular establishment.
Well, we can head. However, your point about urgency is well taken, Zan. It seems that something that should be of most concern to Avastar is being treated with little importance.
Indeed, this is urgent like a gambling debt is urgent, not urgent like a wound to the chest.
Do you have business you wish to pursue?
Not yet. I need to scout out this town. I find people here. It's difficult to explain, but
you seek someone as well?
in a manner of speaking.
Can we assist?
You believe
Do you
him
know
to
where
be
to
here?
look?
No, I don't even know who this person is.
You seek someone you do not know.
Those are the hardest people to find.
Indeed.
How will you know when you've found them?
Now you see my dilemma.
Perhaps you have found them already.
I highly doubt that.
Well, if you wanted to check on the poisoned man I attended to a few days ago, we could certainly pay a visit on the way. Unless Watun wants to go directly to this place.
Well, I had thought the matter to be rather urgent, but Avastar I look over at the passed out Alistair. Does not seem to agree.
Well, perhaps talking to this person does not require 3 people.
What you say is true, but after what happened at the tavern a few days ago, I'm wary about leaving my compatriots alone. I was attacked, and it would seem that perhaps it's Watum who they were looking for, not me. I would not want to leave my friend defenseless.
I am willing to go with you to this church if you wish. It is definitely something I wish to pursue.
I assure you, your friend will come to no harm here, says Andros. We're quite used to the occasional patron imbibing a little bit too freely and having to sleep it off. As followers of Dionysus, we believe it is our duty not only to provide the means of intoxication, but also to seek to the care of those who are perhaps, to put it delicately, overindulge themselves a little, shall we say?
I nod. Very well. Then let us proceed to the Church of Abraham.
Is there room around the hole?
You think you could probably skirt the edge of the hole, yeah.
Okay, so it's not... Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the entire road.
So it's just a really, really alarming pothole.
Pretty much, yeah, it's like a pothole plus. Okay, so you guys, if you're heading to the Temple of Abraham, you skirt round the hole, you continue up Flamewing Street before taking a right. You head down Candle Alley where the chandlers of the town do their work, and as you reach the crossroads here, you see the large square building that is the Temple of Abraham with red and white banners hanging down from it, each of them bearing a tree motif.
As we head there, I will give Watum and Zanak a rundown of what I experienced when I attended him: the eyes, the puncture marks, the signs of poisoning, my attempts to heal him, but inaccessible to cure him.
I've not heard of this Abraham as a god before. What is he the god of?
I'm sure they will tell you if you ask you, but they believe to be a uniting force. Of course, they're no match for something like the power of Njord.
As you get closer, you can see a number of sort of lay priests in the street outside the Church of Abraham, like talking to passers-by. And as you get a bit nearer, a younger priest wearing these halved red and white robes walks over to you and says, "Good afternoon, brothers. Have you heard the word of Abraham today?"
No, who is Abraham?
He smiles and sort of puts a hand, so in a very friendly gesture, on your arm and says, my dark-skinned brother, we believe that Abraham is the name that we give for the divine force that others perceive to be individual deities. We believe that this is actually one force, and that the perception of it is simply the perception of those who cannot perceive it in its full majesty. That does not make their perceptions any less valid, far from it. However, we simply choose to see the divine as it truly is, as one great force that permeates this world that surrounds us. And we give this force the name Abraham. That is simply the name we give it.
So you believe that the gods don't exist, but rather this Abraham does?
No, that's a common misconception, brother. We believe that the deities do indeed exist, but they exist. Let me think the best way to explain it. If you held up a multifaceted jewel or crystal in front of you, and you turned it towards the light, when you hold it at certain angles, you're only capable of perceiving individual facets of it. Whereas if you step back and examine the gemstone in its whole glory, you can see all of the facets of it as a whole. We believe, for this analogy, that the jewel is the divine force, the divine hand, if you will, in this world. And we believe that the deities, as people call them, are their perceptions of this force. Just because they are perceptions, it does not make them any less real to the people who perceive them.
But if all these people who have perceived deities are only looking into facets of a gem, how do you claim to step behind them and look at the whole gem? What knowledge did you discover this?
The way we choose to do it is by a study of all of the various religions and different faiths. We attempt to study them so that we can better understand them, and by understanding them as a whole, we improve our understanding of the divinity that we refer to as Abraham. We're a very inclusive faith.
What did you observe which led you to believe in this Abraham?
We observed that there were certain similarities between the various different deities that people worship. For instance, the dwarven deity Njord, which is a nearby temple to us, has his brethren deities, if you wish to call them that, amongst the pantheons of the elves and of the humans. It is the same with many and various other deities. And
but aren't they completely different from deities such as love?
I'm afraid I must confess ignorance. I have no knowledge of the particular deity that you're speaking about. Alas, I'm only a novice. I have not yet attained the pinnacle of my studies into divinity. Although, if you were willing to share some information about this new deity, I'll be most fascinated to hear more about it. Since we believe that only by studying all the various deities can we improve our own understanding, and therefore seek to serve the divine hand in this world to a greater extent. If you have time, I would love to hear about this deity. And
Not now, but
so happy.
At some other point I can give you information on no less than 5 deities that are no doubt alien to you.
Oh, excellent! I can see that the hand of the divine has indeed guided you here this day to impart your knowledge to us, so that we can attain greater understandings. A happy day.
So, this is not what we're here for. I heard that there was a man fighting for his life from poison here.
Yes. Alas, the poor unfortunate we brought in a number of nights ago. Yes, he's still here. He's still fighting and clinging on to life. But I'm afraid, from what I've heard, the predictions are not positive for him. We've tried to make him comfortable as best we can, but we don't understand the precise nature of the ague that inflicts him.
Illustrae may not have the strength to directly bless him right now, but she has sent someone with perhaps the knowledge to do so, to save him.
If any of you, any suggestions, and all of you have knowledge that can help this poor unfortunate, please. Well, we've done all we can.
I must see him first.
Oh, but please, if you'll all follow me. And he leads you through this large square church building that I've described previously, the rows and aisles. You're led to the back and through a door which you will have all been in before. You recognise it as the room that was previously occupied by Lady Cassandra. Well, you can see that a lot of the stuff's been pushed to the edges of the room to make way for this bed that's been set up for this poor unfortunate man. You see him as you remember him, Drax. He's sallow skinned, slightly yellowed of complexion. There's flecks of spittle around his mouth and in his beard. His eyes are rolled back in his head and they have this unhealthy sort of yellowish look to him. There are 3 lay priests, sort of one knelt down by the bedside with his hands held as if in prayer, his eyes closed, and a couple of others sort of checking on the bedding and trying to make this guy as comfortable as they can.
John, can you just recap for us the connection? I'm not quite sure how Drax got from finding this thing on the windowsill to this guy. It's unclear to me.
Okay, when he was doing his initial investigations while you guys were out of Battlebridge, he asked around the local area to see if anyone had seen anyone suspicious running away from the common sword. He didn't find out about anyone suspicious. He did find out that a man had apparently collapsed in the streets with some sort of strange illness and had been taken to the Church of Abraham. He went there sort of while you guys were out to Battlebridge, saw this poor person and realised that he'd been poisoned by some sort of unknown venom. He wasn't really able to do anything for him, but while this guy was having one of his episodes, he grabbed Drax and murmured something about something with yellow eyes, and then again relapsed into one of these fit states, at which point Drax sort of laid on hands to like give him some more hit points, but he was like, that's really all I can do with him, I can't purge the poison. Then he left to carry on with the rest of his stuff.
Okay, so we have nothing concrete that kicks into anything that's happened to us at all, this window incident or anything. We have no evidence that there's a relationship yet, a connection yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is no established correlation.
And he's a human, you said?
Indeed, he is a human. He has a short brown beard and moustache. He looks like a labourer, basically, from his clothing, although it's quite stained with sweat. Although the priests have been trying to sort of clean him up, there's still like a stale smell of sweat about his body.
Okay, thanks.
Drax's initial thoughts were perhaps this guy ran into whatever attacked him and paid the consequence for chasing him off. So he went to see if he could help him or possibly find out information if he was conscious about him, see if there was a connection, but so far he's been pretty much out of it.
As you head in, Drax, you see one of the lay priests you encountered previously who was ministering to this man. He looks at you and smiles sadly and says, it's good to see you again. I'm afraid there's been no change. He's steadily getting weaker. We're doing all we can, but there's only so long our arts can preserve him. If we don't work out some way to counteract the poison that's working on him, I fear we will not last much longer.
Indeed. Unfortunately, although you may help someone, sometimes they have to learn to swim on their own.
You said the bite. You said, Drax, you said the bite mark was on his arm?
It was on his left arm, I believe.
That's correct. It was on his left arm near the wrist. Mm-hmm. If you have a look at that, Zan, you can indeed see sort of 2 puncture marks sort of there on his arm.
Okay. I would like to make a survival check, not for the poison part of this, but just to see what type of thing would have punctured him.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Make your survival check.
That is a 15.
Okay. It looks, for all the world, as though this man's been bitten by some sort of species of large snake. Although it must be quite large, given like the distance of the sort of fang marks, as you now think them to be.
On the deepness of the wounds, it looks like a snake, but if you look how far apart these are, that would be like these 2 teeth on a humanoid. So it must be a pretty large snake.
I'm going to ask the priest administering to this guy for hours or days, I'm not sure, what they can tell us of the symptoms, what symptoms he's been behaving, other than stuff that's obvious to us. Has he said anything? Has he shown an aversion to garlic?
He appears to be falling in and out of consciousness. He's been raving a great deal. A lot of stuff we didn't understand. Something about a dark figure and yellow eyes. Little we could make sense of. When your friend, and he indicates Drax, was good enough to spot the bite marks, I'm afraid we'd been a little remiss. Our first thoughts were to try and prevent him from falling into the dark realm, but when the marks were revealed, we did examine them, but we didn't find any traces of a venom around the puncture marks. Whatever is in him must have been ingested, but it appears to have caused hallucinations and fevered ravings. And each time he has one of these fits, one of these episodes, his body gets weaker. We fear eventually it will prove too much for his system, and he just falls silent and shakes his head.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know how we can help this man.
Have you not come across this kind of poison in your homeland, Watum? I do not know if snakes are common from where you're from.
I am no healer. We have snakes, indeed, but I am no expert in their bites or their poisons.
Creatures that poison where I'm from are very different. If his symptoms are this far along, it's probably already in his blood. So at this point I'd like to make either a medicine, or if you allow it, maybe a herbalism roll to find out what can cure him. If it's herbalism, I would imagine I would have to find the ingredients after the fact. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy for you to make a herbalism check.
I really wish we were in a combat. Like, that would have been amazing with these rolls. So, 23.
Okay, with 23, you think that without a sort of pure sample of the venom, you're not going to be able to cure him entirely. However, due to your sort of experience with poisons and venoms of all types, you think you can probably put something together from like local herbs that will sort of return his strength briefly and will sort of give him more of a fighting chance for his own sort of immune system to break down the venom. It's not a cure, but it's the best you can do without a sample of the venom.
If I spend a few hours outside of town, I can find some herbs that should be able to increase how long he can fight out for. Australia has done this much for him, but the act of saving this man properly falls on us. It falls on us to act. We must find a pure sample of the venom to produce an anti-venom for whatever this is.
Do you have any suggestions on how we may do this?
I look at Drax. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things you do know, Zan, is that if you put together this sort of tonic for him, it could quite conceivably allow him to sort of regain the use of his faculties, to be able to talk, etc., for a short period of time. He'd still be quite weak, but it'd sort of lessen the fever for a short while, so it'd make him more comfortable and he'd be able to think and talk coherently for a short while.
Tonic for this man might be able to get him to regain consciousness enough to tell us more of his attack.
If you think you can do so, proceed.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go through sort of role-playing out you collecting herbs in the sort of outskirts of the city. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to make me a survival roll to make sure you can gather all of the relevant sort of wild herbs. If you do that, I'll then sort of jump ahead to you guys congregating after you've collected them.
Yep. 21.
Okay, not a problem. So about 3 hours later, after Xana sort of headed to the outskirts of the city into the sort of swampy wilderness beyond and has collected a number of these herbs, you've been sort of like mixing them up, and you've obviously got some water, and you've been making this like tonic on your way back, Xan. You rejoin your companions and administer the tonic to this poor, unfortunate, poisoned man.
Yeah. So yeah, I've collected the herbs on the way through the town back to the church. I've been like mashing them in a mortar and pestle, like constantly, and adding little bits of water, swishing it around in there, and like pouring them out into another jug. And I've been doing that for a while until it's like completely sort of distilled and in this jug. Then you see me into the room, and I add like the last ingredient, the flour that I needed for this toxin, and I shake it up, and approach him. We can administer this to him. It should help.
Okay. You administer, with the help of the priest and your friends, you administer your tonic to this man, and it does seem to quieten him down. And after about another half hour, his eyes slowly regain a little bit of focus, and the priest help him sit up, and in quite a hoarse, sort of dry voice, he's like, "Oh, where am I? What happened?"
I was hoping you could tell me.
Wait, I remember now. It was that man with the yellow eyes. And the cloak. I saw him running down the street away from it looked like a body lying outside one of the taverns in the western part of the city. I tried to stop him and shout for the guards, and I put out my arm to grab hold of him, to restrain him, and he bit me on the arm.
I looked at his arm, and if a snake's head was about the size of a human head, would that kind of fit the puncture marks?
Yep.
Oh dear.
It sounds like we may have found our attacker.
Do you remember anything else about this person?
I remember he had some sort of a curved knife tucked into his belt. I caught a glimpse of the moonlight shining off it as he was running away, but then I tried to follow him, but my legs just went out from underneath me, and then everything started to get blurry and hazy, and the next thing I knew I was here. I've had these horrible dreams. I was in this pit surrounded by snakes. They were everywhere. It was horrible.
I turned to Drax and some of the other clerics, and I just mentioned probably some sort of creature whose venom invokes fear of it. Defense mechanism. No. I will do what I can to find this person and cure you of the venom.
Thank you.
Now you should rest.
Thank you. As you sort of turn to go and you sort of resting, wait, there was one other thing. As they were running away, the last thing I heard before I lost consciousness, I heard him mention something about a key. I didn't know what it meant, and then I lost consciousness.
A key. Okay.
That's all I remember, I'm afraid.
Unfortunately, it doesn't help us find this creature.
What could this key refer to?
If for a moment we make a supposition that this creature is the one that attacked me, and I found the parchment with a drawing of a wand similar to a tomb's, perhaps his wand is the key. I'm not magically knowledgeable like yourself with tomb, but is it possible that such an instrument could be used as such a key?
I do not think so, but impossible? I do not know. You think there is a connection to the wand because...
Well, because I found that parchment in my room and it was not there before. Whoever it was attacked, and judging by his description, it seems similar in terms of time. I mean, the tavern he describes, the direction, would it be the one we were staying at, John? Or at least a reasonable.
West.
Yeah. It's not out of the question that that's possibly the same person.
And
I did find in my room. I did find they look to be scales, but not scales that I'm familiar with, like translucent.
Green or yellow, translucent.
Like translucent.
Like the shedding skin of a snake. It is connected.
Yeah, seems reasonable. I didn't think much of it at the time. Some of my stuff got disturbed. It could have somehow found its way in there, but now that we know it's maybe a snake, then yes.
Our speculation will not save this man's life. Only action can.
Decisive action. How does one
Well,
try
with
a
that,
snake?
with Drax saying decisive action, that is where we are going to end the session for this evening. Thank you very much for playing, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it.
As always.
I'm obviously happy to hang around for a bit and chat afterwards, but for now I'm going to end the broadcast. So thank you guys very much again for playing, as always, and thank you to anyone who's watching this either now or in the future. We will hopefully see you at the next session. Take care.